Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the circuit Estoril here for the final day of action of the Estoril Classics 2023, and we're due very shortly to get the action underway. First off, leading with the 2-litre Cup. We'll also have appearances for the second time of the weekend for the Endurance Racing Legends, the first time for the Classic Endurance Racing Group 2, and we'll also have the second races for the Greatest Trophy, the pre-1986 F1 cars, and we'll also have races from the Heritage Touring Cup, the Classic Endurance Racing Group 1, and the Iberian Historic Endurance. It's a beautiful day here in Estoril. My name is Kieran McKinley, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the fantastic Mr. Adam Weller. Adam, good morning to you.
And he's once again oversold me. Good morning. Great to be back here for day 2 of the Estoril Classics. As you've alluded to, we've got a spoil of riches coming our way today. All manner of brilliant motor racing, covering the very recent past and some of the most epic chapters of racing history, point blank. 1970s Formula One, 1970s Le Mans, the GT battles of the 1960s, and of course the 90s and 2000s covered as well with the endurance racing legends. So much to get to here today, and we start, Kieran, with a concept that has gone from strength to strength in the 2-litre Cup. This is for 1964 to 1966 vintage short wheelbase Porsche 911s. It's effectively the kind of historic racing fever dream of what if someone thought to do the Carrera Cup as soon as the car rolled off the production line. And would you believe it, this is an idea that only struck someone's head in 2018. The series has only been running since 2018, but its popularity has been, frankly, awe-inspiring. It has taken off in a big way very quickly.
Yeah, hasn't it just? Representative of that single make series, isn't it, here for the Estoril Classics? So fantastic to see them out there with our first lot of racing already at turn 6 on their formation. It's probably a good idea to give you an idea of how the grid looks like for the first race of the day. So on the first row is the number 11 Kiriv and Orisbaev. Alongside them is the number 53 Porsche of Cole. Row number 2 is the number 116 of Grimes. Alongside them is the number 77 of Perez and Kadori. Row number 3 is the number 411 of Boucher and Verzil Bergen, and alongside them is the number 269 Kolb and Moritz. Row number 4 is the number 777 of Zeiser and Webb. Alongside them is the 55 of De Crane. Row number 5 is the number 757 of Rudolph. Alongside is the number 19 of Zanketta and Turner. Row 6 is the number 15 of Danglard. Alongside is the 27 of Edwards and Neal. Row 7 is the number 35 of the Edgdio and number 24 Lara Resenda. Row number 8 is the number 239 Julien, and alongside is the number 61 of Fierro and Hart. Row 9 is the 919 of Stricker, alongside is the 175 of Hunger. Row number 10 is the number 68 of Westphal and Middendorf, alongside is the 139 of Caggiano and Dayrout. Row 11 is the number 154 of De Siebenthal, and alongside is the number 2 of Sido. Row 12 is the number 91 of Sarcanero and Barbosa, alongside is the number 5 of Peters. And on the final row, all on the row, is the number 100 of Simoes and Bravo. You can see the starting grid on your screens going at a much quicker pace than I ever could. But we've got a very healthy grid here, 25 due to take this start, Adam. We're about to go racing for the first race of the day, nice and early to get things underway.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have to wait long to go racing, and goodness me, they're already in 2x2. It's not long at all at this stage. There will be pit stops in this race, as kind of made obvious by the fact that we've got 2 driver pairings throughout the grid. 90 minutes of racing, then identical cars. This one is down to the drivers. Let's see how we go.
Let's see how we go. The lights go out. We go racing here in the 2-litre cup, and it is an initially good start then from the shared Kareev and Orozbaev as they make their way down in towards turn one. It is actually Orozbaev who's in the car right now as they head their way through in towards turn one, almost 3-4 wide in the midfield, heading in towards the first corner. And everyone tries to get their way through into that first corner. It is Ramzan Orozbaev who leads the way then, closely followed behind by the 53 of Christian Cole as they make their way through turn three for the first time.
What beautiful racing cars these make as they run through. Orozbaev then in the early lead, and of course we've already seen that driver pairing take a victory in this weekend in the Maserati MC12. They've now got a wildly different machine to use in the 2-litre cup. A few of these cars also, of course, running in yesterday's 60s endurance 2-hour race, a testament to the reliability of an old school 911. Some of these cars are going to attempt to do 3.5 hours of racing in the space of what, 12, 14 hours of time. That's no mean feat for even the newest of cars. We're doing it with cars that are, well, the better part of 60 years old.
Which is fantastic as well. It just shows you the sort of engineering that goes behind it, the design of these cars, and also for our drivers and teams for maintaining them as well. They do need the proper maintenance, and when they are maintained properly and they've got the right care, you can say, Adam, they can last 3.5 hours worth of racing in 2 days. Orozbaev starting to take a little bit of an early lead. Christian Cole now finds himself under a slight bit of pressure from Grimes then in these early stages in that battle for P2 as they make their way through in towards the final corner to complete the first lap worth of racing. There goes the number 77 there of Philip Kaduri. He finds himself in 4th place at the moment, paired up with Seb Perez, who of course won the 60s endurance race yesterday, and they'll be looking to get themselves in good steading here for the 2-litre cup.
As we mentioned yesterday, of course, the early GT racing exploits of young Mr. Perez came in the Porsche Carrera Cup. We know he can pedal a Porsche. We've seen him do it before in 2-litre Cup, so we can expect him to be right up there once he takes over. Kaduri doing an admirable job in the early stages here. Just ahead of him, in 3rd place, Bonamy Grimes. Bonamy Grimes, familiar name if you followed GT racing or prototype racing in the late 2010s, was a product of Johnny Molam's driver coaching, and has been competing in historic racing fairly regularly in recent times. Bonamy, very quick driver, blossomed really under Johnny Molam's tutelage, got better and better as the years went on, racing Ferraris, racing LMP3 cars, and great to see him out there in something, again, quite a bit different. Number 27 car pressuring the 777. That's Matt Neal, the 3-time British Touring Car champion, seemingly taking the start then in the 27 car according to our timing screens. He's trying to go around the outside of Zeiser right now. Zeiser in the 777. That car will be taken over by the Le Mans racer Ollie Webb in a little while. But Matt Neal, what a name to have. Watched him the other day on Twitter, or X if you prefer, doing an open call to anyone in the Estoril paddock who might have a spare hands device. I think he might have left it on the sofa at home. And well, obviously he found one, because here he is, he's racing and he's moving up the order.
I just love the fact that historic racing does attract the attentions of the most prolific drivers. Matt Neal, as you say, behind the wheel of one of these fantastic machines, just putting his talents to the test. As obviously they don't need to be tested. We know how talented he is, but the fact that he's here racing in these historic cars is just fantastic, and it's a testament to how attractive historic racing really is. And it's a callback as well to, I guess, test yourself with historic machinery in the sense of what can you do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think so many of the modern day drivers, especially those based in the UK, will often get that opportunity to kind of get their first taste of historic racing through guest spots at the Goodwood Revival, of course. In the pre-66 touring car race, you'll often have quite a number of the BTCC talent present, for example. And I think that leads a lot of them down the path of historic racing if and when they decide they no longer want to commit to the modern racing schedule. And I think that's exactly what we've seen out of Matt Neal. He currently runs 7th place on the timing screen, so he's still behind Zeiser at the moment. Doing a good job there is Zeiser in the car in 6th place, the 777. Battle for 2nd place looks like it's hotting up though, doesn't it? Bonamy Grimes not hanging around at all.
Not at the moment, putting Christian Cole under some pressure then as they head their way through in towards turn 7. They'll get back onto the power, and Christian Cole here knows he has to do a bit of defending. That's allowed Orosbaev to really take an early lead. 3.7 seconds the gap is at the last timing line. Philip Kadori is under a little bit of pressure as well from Moritz behind in the 269. Max Moritz. That's a battle there for 4th place. So there's a couple of battles developing up and down the field, as there is your battle there for 4th place. Kadori is ahead now of Moritz as they head their way through the final corner. And then, as you mentioned, you've got Zeiser as well in the treble 7. Is holding off the attack of Matt Neal, and there's a little bit of a queue of cars behind him. I believe that goes down to Julien in 14th place, sorry, to Grain in 13th place. So a bit of action on track wherever you're really looking, which is exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's something that this category delivers in spades. The racing is of the utmost quality, and that is why so many of these cars have been built, particularly at some of the longer circuits we go to. Think Spa, for example. The grids can knock on the door of the kind of numbers we saw from the 60s endurance yesterday. So by no means is this a one-off. We always have strong grids in the 2-litre Cup. And I've spoken to the likes of Oliver Bryant, who has competed in these cars several times. He has had nothing but good things to say about just how fun these cars are, and getting an illustration of exactly why they're so fun there. The tail sliding, these cars, early 911s have a reputation, especially the ones from the late 70s into the 80s when they started strapping turbos to them. But at the heart is a very controllable chassis. If you've got the car control, you can have an unworldly amount of fun dancing on that edge without particularly much fear of stepping over it. And there's some brilliant onboards that have already emerged from this weekend. Ollie Webb on Instagram, Oliver James Webb, he's always one to post a GoPro helmet cam, and he's already done so this weekend, and he makes turn 7 look very, very sweet indeed. Nothing but counter steering. Very exciting.
Oh, it's brilliant as well. Max Moritz has got away past Philip Kadori as well, so up into 4th place. That's now for 2nd in class. There you can see then the 777 Zeiser still holding back the attacks of Matt Neal at the moment. 4th place in class is up for grabs there, as Matt Neal closely follows him through as we make our way on towards the start-finish line. But there's Bonamy Grimes, who's made the move now on Christian Cole out of the final corner along the start-finish straight. And Grimes now takes over the lead of GTL. It's for 2nd place overall. And as they get onto the anchors, then Bonamy Grimes moves up a place. Now he's 7.3 seconds back from Orosbaev. Let's see what he can do with a bit of clean air in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Max Moritz, you mentioned him. I must say, I'm not too certain as to which Max Moritz this is. The Max Moritz racing team, well known in the 1970s, they were the team that largely were the custodians of the Jägermeister Porsches in the 1970s racing scene. But that was a long old time ago. I don't know if this is maybe a son of Moritz, the original Max Moritz. I'm not too certain, I must admit. I've tried to find that answer and ended up down a rabbit hole. But yeah, Max Moritz, a name well associated with Porsche competition. Max Moritz, the name of a very famous Porsche dealership as well. I know that the original Max Moritz opened his first Porsche dealership in 1950, so I have to assume it's a son of the original Max Moritz. But nonetheless, a name that is very well associated with Porsche competition. Of course, what this could also be is someone choosing a famous name as a pseudonym just to wind me up, but we'll see.
Ooh, there's the 91 going for a spin there and falling down the order. That's why there were yellow flags. That's Canero, who's got a little bit of a half spin. Francisco, though, looks like he got back underway. There were brief yellow flags at turn 1, and that would have been the reason why. Bonamy Grimes now is starting to extend the gap over Christian Cole, but he's not closing on Urazbayev at the moment as they make their way across the line. Pit window will be opening in just over 24 minutes time. It will open at 35 minutes into the race. It closes the pit window at 55 minutes, and it will be a 2-minute mandatory stop. So you have to stay in your pit box for 2 minutes, and then you've got the additional time of actually making it through the pit lane entirely. So we'll see that and how everything changes going through the day. We've already, though, had our first penalty awarded of the day. We've got car number 68 there, which is the shared car of Jürgen Westphal and Andreas Middendorf, a 90-second penalty for track limit infringement at turn 4. So again, we are back to where we were yesterday. The track limits here are taken very seriously, and there are they are draconian penalties, but that's to ensure the drivers stay between the white lines.
Yeah, I think the argument kind of may well be, look, this is historic racing. You don't have to be pushing the envelope to the nth degree. And in fact, if you're doing that, you're probably driving in a manner unbecoming by the standards of the organisation. So I think that might be part of the argument. Certainly, though, track limits being steadfastly punished. And as you can see, there are quite a wealth of runoff areas around the circuit. So drivers really do have to keep that instinct in check to drift wide and carry the speed. And there you see the Swiss car that just went through shot there, just testing the limits a little bit. They have to be careful. Obviously, it's a common sense rule, as with all things. If you wildly understeer off and lose yourself 2 or 3 seconds, I somehow doubt you're going to receive a penalty for that. If anything, you're using the runoff for its intended purpose in that instance. But if it's seen that you've gained an advantage, carried more speed than you otherwise would have been able to, it's often fairly slam dunk, unfortunately, especially when the TV cameras are trained on you.
Absolutely. The hotspot seems to be turn 4, which is the exit curb out of that second hairpin of the lap. I'll come back to this one because we've got a battle on our hands here, making our way across the line. It's going to be the 757, so that's Jürgen Rudolph here, who's looking to try and find a move past the 411, my apologies, of Boucher, as we make our way through in towards turn 1, and they are closely monitored right now by the number 15 of David Danglard going through in towards turn 2. Keeping an eye on that battle. Danglard maybe looking for an inside move, has to tuck back in and stay line of stern for now. But we're coming up towards turn 4, which is one of the hotspots for track limits, which might be kept an eye on. Boucher and Rudolph might be trying to go side by side through in towards turn 4 there, and well, the 757 rather finds itself on the outside. It's that exit curb there that's going to be kept a watchful eye on for track limits. Turn 7 as well, we'll see the exit curb to the left hand side of the camera, because I assume we're going to follow this battle all the way through for the rest of the lap, heading our way down towards turn 6. It's a 4-car battle here for 8th place overall, and as we mentioned yesterday, for Jürgen Rudolph, this is not a battle for a class position, it's a battle for overall position, and that's enough.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. There are 2 classes at play here with the regular 2-litre cup, and then you've got this kind of separate class for drivers deemed, or at least driver pairings where at least one of the drivers is deemed to be elite. And no surprises, that's where the Matt Neals and Ollie Webbs of the world, and indeed the Seb Perez's of the world, all reside. But yeah, no, it's a great battle. They don't really worry too much about the classes, especially when all of the cars are identical. There's pride on the line, for goodness sake, and that applies all the way down the order. The battle for 11th just going through shot there as well, led by Turner in the 19. But these are truly gorgeous racing machines, and they make for brilliant action as well. Here comes Danglard then. In the 15, in the slip of the 757. Rudolph going defensive. This is for 8th place, and let's see, does the outside line pay off? It doesn't pay off very often around the Circuito Estoril on this occasion. Powder remains dry for Danglard in the 15.
Yeah, Boucher dropped down the order there to P14. Now finds behind Lara Resender. So a little bit of a moment there for him. It puts him further down the order and further out of that battle there. There's the number 55, that's Philip de Crane, as he gets all sorts of sideways coming out of the exit of turn 3, which is not an uncommon sight in these Porsche 911s, the mid-60s cars. You've got to really see if you can get the tail out as well. But at certain opportunities around these sort of hairpins as well is probably a good time. But we still see David Danglard looking to try and get the move then as we head away down towards turn 16. He's also got to be careful behind him. That's James Turner in the 19, looking to really pick up the scraps if and when they provide when the opportunity arises.
And one thing that is most definitely worth mentioning is the exploits this season of Seb Perez. He has taken, by my understanding, every single race win this year in the 2-litre Cup with a couple of different co-drivers. So he has been absolutely on it this season. I think so far he's shared with George Gamble and Phil Quaife, as my understanding. Kadori and he are sharing the car for the first time in this category for the season. But yeah, Seb Perez has been in a league of his own this season. He's on his way to a points championship win. In fact, I'm pretty sure he can already not be superseded really in the championship. I don't think George Gamble is here. Bonamy Grimes, who's second in the points, is here. However, he'd have to do a lot of work to usurp the performances of Seb Perez and rely on the full haul of bonus points as well. So yeah, no, it's been an amazing season for Perez. He will walk out as the almost certainly walk out as the champion in 2-litre Cup this year overall. Bonamy Grimes, as long as he beats Danglard, or indeed doesn't get too badly beaten by Danglard, he should also leave this weekend as the gentleman champion here in the 2-litre Cup as well. So while in many ways this is a not considered, a full-time commitment by a lot of these drivers, they'll pick and choose the events they want to do. They'll pick and choose the events that they're able to do around other commitments. There are still championship points being scored, and very much looks like the 2 championships in this case are all but cut and dry already.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be a case as well. Seb Perez will be keeping one eye on this race. Philip Kadori at the moment currently in 6th place, still keeping up with Matt Neal at this stage of the race, as we see and watch on our race leader Ramzan Horozbayev make his way through the final corner. A healthy lead of nearly 18 seconds between himself and Bonamy Grimes, so he's really pushing it out there. Bonamy Grimes, in turn, is trying to push on. We did see him a lap ago get all sorts of sideways coming through the final corner. And Christian Cole will be taking note of that. He's still only 1.2 seconds back. Grimes was building that gap. Here we see Bonamy Grimes charge the way through. And that's Dirk Peters, who's come into the pit lane. This is outside of the pit window. Pit window doesn't open for another 15 and a half minutes. So possible issue there for Dirk. But the team having a look over, giving it the once-over and seeing if they can get it back out onto track.
So impressive to see. I think you think of a 2-litre car from the 60s and maybe think, well, this is all done in the corners, isn't it? This is a momentum car. It won't be quick in a straight line, but they really do have a lick on, don't they, by the end of that main straight? And they really have to step on those anchors and try and get it stopped. You see them shifting laterally under braking, which is always the mark of committed braking. Bonamy Grimes maybe slightly overcommitting there to turn 4, but that'll straighten up his exit for the corner. Just about stays 2 wheels within the white lines, but of course have to be careful of those track limits, as we know. We've already had a couple of penalties in this race. I think Lara Rosenda may have just got a 45-second penalty in the 24 car, but my word, Bonamy Grimes is clearly pressing on. Already some 19 seconds clear here is Orisbaev, but Bonamy Grimes clearly pressing. I think maybe stretch the track limits a bit too far there, actually, out of turn 6, if we're being completely upfront.
Yeah, Bonamy Grimes is pushing hard, but it's leaving the tail to be a little bit happy at the moment. Christian Cole's happy to close the gap. He's been closing lap after lap over the last 3 or 4 laps here as we make our way through in towards Gaucho on the exit now of turn 10. Make our way through in towards 11, 12 and 13 to finish off this lap, and Christian Cole is now right onto the back of Bonamy Grimes, and we've seen Grimes over the last 2 laps get a bit tail happy. There it is again, the tail trying to step out of Bonamy Grimes. So a little bit of opposite counter steering needs to be applied here. Christian Cole now onto the start finish straight, on the run down towards turn 1, has a bit of toe from Bonamy Grimes. Will look for a move down towards turn 1. Will he be close enough, I wonder, down towards turn 1 here? So we'll make our way onwards and upwards, and Moritz across the line. So too, Matt Neal sort of starting to spread out over the field, especially within the top 10. Christian Cole not quite close enough to challenge Bonamy Grimes in towards turn 1, but there's a dash of yellow and red in the mirrors of Bonamy Grimes here, and that speck's been getting bigger and bigger lap after lap.
Yeah, absolutely right, and great to see this kind of battling. I do suspect that Matt Neal will be on the back of Moritz before too long. That gap down under 2 seconds at the moment, and perhaps Kadori can come with him too. The 757 of Rudolph just dropped a few places, down to 12th position in the 757, so there may have been a foot wrong there for the driver of that car, Jürgen Rudolph. He'll hand over to Heiko Hammel later on, the all-German lineup in that car.
Yeah, maybe a moment there in sector 1, because that's was last time around he lost about 5 seconds or so, 5-6 seconds. So potentially a little bit of an issue heading through sector 1 on that previous lap. Christian Cole just keeping an eye here on Bonamy Grimes as we make our way through in towards turn 8, now heading towards the chicane of 9 and 10. Now feed their way through. And Christian Cole here just watching on from Bonamy Grimes, and for Grimes here, that back end of his Porsche is stepping out a lot more often than others around the field, and I wonder if it's just a case where those rear tyres are just quite hot. The track temperature 23 degrees, of course that's only going to increase over the course of the day. Looked a bit tidier through the final corner there, did Bonamy Grimes. But yeah, that rear end just seems to want to step out, and whether that's by preference of Bonamy Grimes or whether that's just a consequence of pushing on, either way, Christian Cole was able to close in over those last couple of laps.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, all of these cars, the camera plays tricks on cars like this. It looks more planted than it actually is in the cockpit. If you, again, looking at the onboards of people like Ollie Webb, who push to the limit, a lot of sideways commitment required, driving out of the passenger windows. So I do think that it's a valid strategy from Bonamy. Of course, yes, the tyres will maybe heat up a bit too much over the course of the race if he keeps it up consistently. But certainly sideways driving in cars like this with the thin tyres, the primitive suspension, it's almost a given But again, that's one of the things that makes this racing so exciting and so rewarding for the drivers, is the fact that you've got this fairly compliant chassis and you really can throw the car around. Matt Neal, he'll be throwing his weight around at the moment. He is a great height, and he's reaching greater heights in this race as well. He's right behind Max Moritz at the moment in the battle for fourth place.
Absolutely, as they now make their way down towards...
Sorry, I was just going to point out there that Cole has dropped off the back of Grimes, hasn't he? The gap was 0.9 of a second at the first sector split, and I think it will have gone up significantly. The second sector split is at Gaucho. Indeed, the gap has gone up by 3 seconds, so I think Cole must have put a foot wrong here, which now leaves him in the wake of Moritz and Neal, potentially. So we could have a three-way scrap for third before long.
Yeah, so Moritz now would rather focus on attack rather than defence of Matt Neal as we make our way through now the final corner with 64 minutes left on the clock. The pit window opens in just over 9 minutes time. We did mention that we have the 757 Jürgen Rudolph, who had that moment earlier on in the race, somewhere in sector 1, has come into the pits and has stayed there ever since. So unfortunately, it's not looking too good for Jürgen Rudolph and Heiko Hammer. We'll keep an eye on that one to see if they do rejoin. Caggiano, who was in the pits in the 139, has rejoined onto the circuit, but finds himself quite a way down and behind the pack. But I guess it's just a case of just seeing for Daniel Thomas Caggiano if it's a car that can be driven to the end of the race. And we'll keep an eye on that one as well. But yeah, Christian Cole has really now been reeled in by Max Moritz and Matt Neal as we make our way through in towards turn 3 there. And now it's a trio, a battle here for the final spot on the overall podium.
Yeah, Matt Neal, 3-time BTCC champion in 2005 and 2006, of course, with the famous Halfords Integra. Went and won it again in 2011, and long before that was famed for his exploits as an independent in cars like the Nissan Primera. He has been racing for a long time. He's raced Porsches before this as well. Raced a Porsche 911 GT1 on the Silverstone British Grand Prix support package back in 1998. I'm committing to on that. I believe it was 1998. Matt Neal, right there behind Moritz, had a little look to the outside line at turn 6, just biding his time for the time being. But you get the feeling that the pace of Neal is superior to both of those ahead. But he's got his work cut out, because both of these drivers know these cars fairly well, and they're not going to make it easy for him just because he's got a bit of a reputation.
Absolutely not. And Max Moritz here looking to put the pressure and apply that pressure to Christian Cole, heading our way through. Matt Neal also looking for Moritz's position through in towards the final corner. They roll. Was then towards that start-finish straight. Orosbaev still with a healthy lead at the moment. It was 20 seconds at the last timing line between himself and Bonamy Grimes. Christian Cole is now about 6 seconds back from Bonamy Grimes, who's lost a lot of time in the last couple of laps. Matt Neal, though, seems to be closing there on Max Moritz as they make their way down towards the first corner. He looks for the move down the inside. Is this a chance for him to try and get the position up the inside of Max Moritz? He goes, and Matt Neal does take over the position, then moves himself up into 4th place overall, and now up into 2nd in class in the elites category here.
Oh, and look at Cole there. That was a big snap there on the curbs. 68 under investigation for multiple track limits infringements. Not often have those investigations not yielded a penalty, so that's a point of potential concern for Westphal in the 68 car. But Matt Neal then up to 4th place. Was rather lucky to find the space to complete the corner, of course, because Cole took a sweeping wide line and then cut back in to take the corner, as he had every right to do. Matt Neal, though, gets himself up to 4th place ahead of Max Moritz, and well, he's got his eye in now, hasn't he? He's right there behind Cole. Cole can't leave the door open like that too often, otherwise the position will be lost. Although that wasn't actually a bad strategy there. He had just enough room to run the car wide, straighten out the exit of the Parabolica interior bend, and quite heads-up driving actually there from Cole. But once someone like Matt Neal is right on your bumper, you can't afford that kind of strategy. You can't leave the door open, even if it is going to give you a better run out of the turn.
Here they go in towards turn 10, then out of Gaucho and onwards towards to complete the lap. Still, Christian Cole holds on to third place overall. Matt Neal will be quick to try and usurp that one. He sized up Max Moritz going in towards the first corner and got the move done. Is he close enough to make it 2 in 2 laps as we make our way around the final corner into the final hour of this race? We're at a third of the distance and we see Matt Neal here. Is he close enough to try and challenge here? Well, we're about to find out as we head our way down the start-finish straight then. Matt Neal closing and closing as we make our way down towards the first corner. He's certainly thinking about the move up the inside, but I don't think he's quite close enough this time to try and move on Christian Cole, and we'll have to hold back for now. There's Ziza and Kadori also battling away for 6th place. There as well goes Turner up the inside. Here goes Kadori. He goes for the move up the inside, but the door was always closing, and Ziza manages to hold on to that position. And what about for the 19 of James Turner? Did he get that move done on Danglard? Heading our way through now in towards turn 3. We see Sizer still hanging on to that 6th place overall position, but Philip Kadori is going to chase him all the way.
Of course, Kadori is doing the same trick as he did last night, isn't he? He's going to be doing 2 consecutive races in wildly contrasting cars. He'll be in the DBR9 in Endurance Racing Legends after this. It looked to me as if James Turner remained behind there in that particular situation for 8th place. Yeah, Danglard in the 15 is still there in 8th, even though Turner was certainly looking lively to his inside. While all of that was going on, Matt Neal has been promoted to 3rd place, it seems. So Matt Neal did get through into 3rd place, so he either did think about it and do it, or maybe Cole put a foot wrong after turn 1, but nonetheless, Matt Neal is now in P3.
Matt Neal now up into the overall podium spots then, and still Turner looking for a move past Danglard then, looking up the inside of some corners, but not quite finding that move then, or a slight lock up there from Ziza. Well, he might get a compromise run through the first part of Gaucho. Could he get the power down here? This might be an invitation. This might be the only invitation that Kadori needs as we make our way through in towards turn 12. Philip Kadori, who's been quick this weekend, makes his way through the final corner and putting Ziza under a bit of pressure here. Guys, Ziza will be possibly looking in his rear view mirrors because Philip Kadori is right on his tail now as we make our way onto the start-finish straight. Is there a move on here now for Philip Kadori? He's tried once before down the inside in towards the first corner. That didn't work. But this time he's a bit closer. Will he try a same move again? Will he stay in the toe? I think he's certainly looking for it. Yes, he's going to go for it here. Philip Kadori again down the inside, but again, he has to back out of that one as the door was closing from Guy Ziza, so no way through. But Philip Kadori here is making Ziza well aware that he's right there. And that's a problem for Bonamy Grimes here, who was running in second place overall.
Yeah, Bonamy there looked like he was either recovering from a spin or perhaps struggling to select a gear. But the fact that he's now back up to speed would suggest it was merely a mistake rather than a mechanical issue. But yes, he's down now to 4th position, so that the seas continue to part for Matt Neal at this point. He's got himself up to 2nd with a nice cushion of about 2 seconds between himself and Moritz in 3rd place now. So Cole is down to 5th place and Bonamy Grimes down to 4th. I think we might be getting a replay here of what happened to Bon. And did he... Oh, he had to take evasive action there on a back marker. I think tried to carry a little bit too much speed, expected a bit more room on the inside of the corner, and sent into a spin as a result. He did well to collect that and get the car going quickly, but time and position lost by Bon Grimes. He now has to calm himself down, get his head in the game, and just get back to it, which is so much easier said than done, especially if it's an incident where, you know, if a driver can apportion blame to the other party, let's face it, in the heat of the moment, the adrenaline's going to make you. He's going to be thinking, well, that's not fair on me, is it? But he has to focus on the task at hand, which is now getting back into those podium positions.
Yeah, he still has the class lead, of course, but that's been scythed down because of that moment. Christian Cole's now only 1.4 seconds back now. Guy Zeiser's had a better lap this time around. He's managed to open up that gap slightly there to Philip Kadori. There's Matt Neal making his way now down in towards the first corner. And there is Bonamy Grimes right behind Max Moritz, who, for Bon Grimes, he is determined to make up that lost ground he's had as we make our way through in towards turn 2. It's then towards the turn 3 and 4 complex. And Bon Grimes here, eager to make up that time to try and make his way through. Then he's also got to be wary of Christian Cole right behind him. He's only 1.6 seconds back, and if Bon Grimes finds that he can't find a move on Max Moritz, that's going to open up a couple of problems, as the pit window will be open. So pit window now open, and we see, I think that's Di Egidio who's come into the pits there. So too has Julien in the 239. So we're expecting cars now to pit in over the next 20 minutes, which is how long the pit window is open for.
Amazing that we're already at pit window point in this 90-minute race, just over 35 minutes in, and we've said it a few times already this weekend. Hasn't this one flown by? Brilliant to and fro racing from the various parties in this event, and as you can see, also as the pit window opens, we're starting to get into that lap traffic point as well. So a lot of drama, a lot of hurdles for the drivers to face here at the front end of the pack, and of course Bonamy Grimes has already found that out to his detriment.
Yeah, they're just trying to pass the 139. I think that's Daniel Thomas Caggiano, as well as Mark Saido as well. So just a bit of lappery to deal with, to contend with, going through the latter stages of this lap, as Max Moritz stays ahead of Bonamy Grimes at the moment. There is that 139, just putting laps on it from those around, but he pulls to the right-hand side of the track. And just below us, Bon Grimes, has he got a good run on Max Moritz, possibly down towards the first turn? It did look like he had a good run, as Max Moritz feels that he needs to go defensive then. So now Bon Grimes will try and go around the outside in towards the first turn, then getting the power down, and around the outside goes Bonamy Grimes. He gets the position from Max Moritz then. Moritz told him to go the long way round, and that's exactly what Bonamy Grimes did.
Yeah, don't mind if I do, I think was the summation there, wasn't it? Great driving from him, and it does seem that these cars are conducive to overtakes of any variety you care to throw at it, isn't it? You can go around the outside in these things, you can launch it from a car length or so back if you're particularly brave on the brakes in a long braking zone. It really is exciting to see what these cars are capable of. And Bon Grimes, well, he knows he's capable of running in second place, and that's what he now wants to do. He's hunting Matt Neal, and what a thrill that has to be. And oh, that was a reverse entry almost into turn 6. He's managed to keep it together. I don't think he even scrubbed off that much time in the process. That is a determined racing driver. I mean, he was sideways before. You commented on it, Kieran. I think now any restraint that was being applied to his driving has been removed entirely.
Yeah, the shackles have been broken, haven't they, for Bonamy Grimes, as he chases down Matt Neal. Locking a brake doesn't faze him whatsoever as he gets the power down, coming out of Gaucho and onwards then towards the last couple of corners. We haven't mentioned him in a while, but it is Ramzan Orazbayev who does lead the way in the number 11 machine, and has built up a nearly 38-second gap between himself and Matt Neal. And once again, the theme is there's always a battle going on for the podium spots, which is great to see, as we see the 154 make its way through the picture there. That's going to be Di Siebenthal, who's running in 17th place at the moment. There's Bonamy Grimes lurking, isn't he, in the mirrors of Matt Neal, just letting him know he's there. I'm surprised he hasn't got the headlights on at this point. Matt Neal does, though, with down in towards turn 1. As Max Moritz comes into the pit, so too did Philip Kadori. So Philip Kadori is now going to hand over to Seb Perez, and I'm excited to see what Seb Perez can do from this position. It was a strong opening stint from Philip Kaduri. Max Moritz also brings the car in. He's scheduled to change it over to Vincent Kolb, who will take over the reins and take the checkered flag.
Yeah, he will be pressing on, I'm sure of that. Some real fast guns that will be taken into the race later on. Looking forward to seeing what the likes of Christian Glazel can do. Lots of drivers, especially in that GTL Elite class, the category for lineups featuring a professional driver such as Matt Neal. I think that's going to be very compelling, and of course we are going to see as well potentially a little bit of maybe cars dropping through the order a little bit for the likes of Edwards, who'll take over from Matt Neal. Of course, he's got some mighty shoes to fill, and Stephen Edwards might not be able to have that ultimate pace of Matt Neal. I'm not sure where their speed is relative to one another, but of course those that have the quote-unquote elite driver in first are always more likely to struggle a little bit in the latter stages. One person who's just got into the car who is very much of the elite is, of course, Seb Perez in the 77. He's down in 18th right now in that car, and we've seen him obviously already perform magic this weekend at an AC Cobra.
Haven't we just? And it is a 2-minute mandatory stationary time in the pit lane. So you've got to stay stationary for that 2 minutes, and then you can make your way down the pit lane once again. Danglard has now managed to pass Sizer as we see Bonamy Grimes coming into the pits then, the 116. So Bonamy Grimes dives into the pit lane to serve his mandatory stop. So we get a little bit standings get a little bit topsy-turvy until it all balances out about 20 minutes later, where we really find out how everything has shaped up. But for someone like Seb Perez, who needs to be setting those quick lap times to scythe the gap down to the top, as we still see there our leaders in the number 11, Ramzan Orazbayev, still leading the way. Matt Neal in second place. Christian Cole, that means, now moves up into third place with David Danglard in fourth. And it's Guy Zizer rounding off our top 5 overall. But the 19 of James Turner looks like he's very close to him as we watch on that battle right now. Guy Zizer and James Turner trying to negotiate their way through a bit of lappery as well to contend with.
I'm interested to see how the second half of this race will treat the leading duo as well. Orazbayev has been building that lead to an incredible degree, now 39 seconds clear of Matt Neal. Even 5, 6, 7 minutes ago that was just 34 seconds, so Orazbayev has been really putting in a shift here. It'll be interesting to see how Evgeny Kareev takes that car over and how he moves on with the race from there. He's got a sizable advantage. Of course, he'll be hoping against hope that the second half of the race remains undelayed and unsafety carred, more specifically, so that lead doesn't get ebbed away.
And we've seen that more than once here this weekend. We've seen a safety car intervention wipe out what seemed to be an unassailable lead, and really just ask the questions to the leaders. But we'll see what happens for the remaining 46.5 minutes then. As Orazbayev is electing to stay out as well, so too is Matt Neal at this point in time. There's the number 55 machine of Philip de Crane. He'll make his way onwards then towards the start-finish line. Matt Neal then a little bit of a race of his own at the moment with Christian Cole. Seems to have spread out as you would expect during the pit window. One of the closest battles then is the battle for 5th place overall between Guy Zizer and the number 19 of James Turner. About half a second separated them at the last timing line.
Shame then that the cars that ended up in the pits earlier on didn't come back out. Jürgen Rudolph, of course, came in earlier on in the 757. He was due to hand over to Heiko Hammel, who has driven all manner of wonderful historic cars in recent years, but also has quite the pedigree in contemporary racing, be it GT3 cars in VLN. He's raced a little bit of DTM trophy in more recent times as well. Has quite a decorated record across various GT and touring car categories. A shame that he won't be able to join us in the race as Turner and Zeiser continue to size each other up. And well, for now, it's Guy Zeiser holding on admirably. And I'd say Zeiser really is putting in some good groundwork in this stint. He's there in 5th place right now, of course. Doing a great job of defending. No position gained on Zeiser is gained easily. And of course, he's got the weapon that is Ollie Webb just waiting in the wings to take the car over.
Yeah, hasn't he just? And James Turner here trying to negotiate his way through a bit of lappery as well, as we've got going in towards the chicane there. But yeah, he's lost a bit of time as Turner on Zeiser there, and it's now put him right into the clutches now of Philip de Crane in the number 55. So a struggling middle sector for James Turner now means he has to turn, really, he has to turn attack to defence now.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is often the ebb and flow of things, isn't it, in these situations? Great to see this battling. Now that we're in the mid-stage of the race, we've just ticked over half distance. I do wonder if we'll see a couple of more pit stops now, because a lot of the drivers, as we've alluded to a few times, like to cut it down the middle. We've got a flash of the headlights there from Turner and an indicator as well from the 55 of de Crane, which suggests to me that they're signalling to their pit boxes. Oftentimes you see that. Matt Neal is out of the 27 car then. Good job from Matt. He can now hand his rented hands device back in to whoever he got it from. And a good shift in that car from Matt.
Yeah, really good shift. Got himself up into 2nd place overall. Got some overtakes done as well down in towards the first corner. So yeah, really good stint from him. And as you said, he will now hand over the reins then. Guy Zeiser is also into the pits then in the 777. He's going to hand over to Ollie Webb, who will be taking over toward the final stint. So we'll keep an eye on what Ollie Webb can do towards the remaining stint of this race. Also, the 411 is into the pits. Lucas Boucher, he's going to hand over now to David Verziel-Bergen, who will take the reins towards the checkered flag. And yeah, it's that 2-minute mandatory stationary time as well. It's getting it as close to 2 minutes as you can without going under. It's always a real challenge, but you'd rather be a couple of seconds over rather than a tenth of a second under.
Well, you see, that's the logical everyday mentality, not the racing mentality that you've given us there. Yeah, no, it is that fine balance, isn't it? You want to be conservative and make sure you don't risk a larger penalty. I think in this type of racing, and specifically with the way the penalties are structured here, in Peter Auto competition, it makes a lot more sense to err on the side of caution, do 2 minutes and 1 rather than 1 minute 59.9. Yeah, no, it is a fine balance though, as you allude to.
Fine balance that I'm sure would have been rehearsed as well for these drivers and teams to make sure they get as close to 2 minutes as they possibly can without going under. 41.5 minutes remain in this race. A couple of instances to relay to you. The number 239, Frank Julien, has got a 60-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. We also have the, I think, car 24. I think we mentioned Francisco Lara Resende got a 45-second penalties for track limits at turn 13. And currently, the 116 of Bonamy Grimes is under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. So, I mean, you and I think, first saw the first investigation for speeding in pit lane be rescinded and say no further action needed. But we'll keep an eye on Bonamy Grimes then, because currently he's under investigation.
Yeah, sometimes it is cut and dry, or usually it is cut and dry with a pit lane speeding infringement. But we did see one get cancelled yesterday. Whether that was maybe a swarm of cars exiting the pits at the same time and they couldn't positively identify who upset the speed gun. That might have been one of the scenarios. I think I have seen that happen before, actually, on one occasion. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that goes for Bonamy Grimes. It would be a big shame to see his race that has been so promising thus far curtailed by something that is a little bit trivial, but rules are the rules, and you have to abide by them, frankly. Otherwise, yeah, that's exactly what will happen to you. Ramzan Orazbayev, he will have to abide by the maximum driver time, whether he likes it or not. So he'll have to hand the car over soon, won't he? From the race lead, currently 52 seconds to the good at the sharp end of the order. We saw Christian Cole just heading in now for his pit stop.
Yeah, Christian Cole heading in from second place, and it looks like that's Danglard signalling to his crew that he's boxing next lap with the wave of the arm towards the pit wall. So he's currently now running in second place. We also saw as well Philippe de Crane bring the car in for the mandatory stop as well. Seb Perez is now ahead of Max Moritz then in the 77, now 2.4 seconds behind the 27 of Edwards then. So that's going to be Stephen Edwards, who's taken over from Matt Neal. We'll see what Perez can do in these closing stints then. 39 minutes on the clock. Orazbayev, as you mentioned, and Danglard still yet to make their mandatory stops. They are currently running 1 and 2, but Orazbayev has got a 57-second lead to Danglard. It's been a really good opening stint there for Ramzan Orazbayev then. He's done everything he's needed to do so far. Just keep his head down, keep putting in those consistent lap times there. As there we see Sacanero is currently in the pits, looking to, I think, hand over to Carlos Barbosa now, who will take to the checkered flag. See then, keep an eye on how everything starts to unfold. Seb Perez right now behind Philippe de Crane in the 55, and also being followed as well by the 269 of Kolb there. So Vincent Kolb, who's taken over from Max Moritz. So I'm going to correct myself there. Kolb now ahead of Perez, and it looks like there's a 3-car battle going on for 8th place overall.
Oh, the battles don't stop in this form of racing. 2 Litre Cup, so popular for many reasons, and one of them is the brilliant racing that we see. And I think as well as some of the superstar drivers that come in and make an appearance, I think that there's a lot of potential for this as a spectator sport as well as a competitor's favourite, isn't there? Cars coming in, including Turner in the 19, who left it fairly late. So pretty much everybody has done a stop at this point, of course, with the notable exception of our race leader.
Yeah, there's Bonamy Grimes, who has now been hit with a 1-minute penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So that will be added to the end of his race. So, and he also got a track limit warning for turn 7. Only the warning flag this time, but it does mean they are watching him for next time around. But yeah, that's going to be a huge blow there for someone who was really looking at the sharp end of the order. There's David Danglard, who's into the pits, giving the windscreen a clean in that 2 minutes mandatory stop time. And just a bit of a review, have a drink as well, because right now the air temperature is 25 degrees, and it's going to be even hotter than that within a closed cockpit machine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And obviously the level of creature comforts in a car like this is probably not not overwhelming. Primitive air conditioning, probably not even that, really. David Danglard, we saw him. Now, if I'm not mistaken, David is the David Danglard behind one of the biggest American karting companies or go-kart centres, kind of like if you're watching from the UK, sort of like an American team sport known as K1 Speed. So Danglard very much allows himself to pursue his racing interests in business and in pleasure, and I believe that Boris Said, the ex-factory BMW driver, has a role to play in that as well. I know that David Danglard is the founder of K1 Speed, and I believe that is the same David Danglard that we have here.
There we have our race leaders then. Ramzan Orazbayev has handed over the reins then to Evgeny Kiriv to try and take the checkered flag with a very healthy lead. He built up there. Really good opening stint from Ramzan Orazbayev, and he's off now, I'm sure, to the pit wall to grab a drink and have maybe a bit of a debrief as well. But we know Evgeny will be ready to take the hold. Then David Danglard completes his stop and moves himself back out onto track. So too does Jose Ruben Zanchetta, who makes his way back out onto track, looking to get to the checkered flag.
I think the first task for Ramzan will be go warm up the Maserati, mate. We're racing after this. The endurance racing legends, of course, up next with a little bit of crossover in terms of the driver lineups, all of whom in wildly different cars from these pre-66 2-litre 911s. The 19 car back out on the circuit with Jose Ruben Zanchetta at the wheel, as you rightly said. So the Argentine taking over from the British driver. David Danglard back out there as well, just ahead of Christian Coll, and I believe that's for position. Indeed, it should be. So Coll has ended up just behind Danglard, as a matter of fact. So they came out pretty much equidistant as Danglard exited the pits, but Danglard has ended up in third position.
Yeah, this is where we'll start to see all those positions start to be sorted then, as battle for sixth place still ongoing as well, with Stephen Edwards in the 27 still ahead right now of the 269 of Vincent Kolb and the 77 of Seb Perez. That is for second place overall for second place in class in the elites. It's for sixth place overall at this moment in time. But there we see Danglard making his way through into Ort and out of Gaucho, then 18 seconds behind Bonamy Grimes. But of course, Grimes has a 60-second penalty that he'll have to serve at the end of the race. So he's going to find himself dropped down the order. So this is a case for Bonamy Grimes. We know, we saw from the opening stint, he has the pace, but he's really got to get everything out of the car if he wants to try and still finish in a high position with that 60-second penalty.
Yeah, and obviously he's got that track limits warning as well, so he's got to try not to overstep the mark while he's doing that, which makes a fairly tricky ask, a near-on impossible ask in reality, to try and stave off the advances of that penalty. Here comes, though, that battle pack, including Edwards, including the 19 car, including Seb Perez, who's looking to the inside here. Zanchetta, that's committed braking. Goodness me, he made the apex. Somehow just about got it stopped. However, not quite carrying the momentum through the corner. So Zanchetta now gets a look to the inside once again. Sixth place remains with Zanchetta for now, but Seb Perez must have been stomping the anchors for all he was worth there. Almost tagged the back of Zanchetta through turn 3. Zanchetta drifts wide. The 27 kicking up some tyre smoke as well. Wow, what action-packed racing this is. And Perez gets through. I think Zanchetta maybe slightly sensed that he was fighting a losing battle there and said, you know what, just go for it, mate.
But he still put up a fight while he was there. It was great to watch. But Seb Perez somehow getting that car stopped in time for turn 1 and eventually making the move on Zanchetta. Meanwhile then, you see the 27 there trying to now hold off the attack of Ollie Webb, who's finding himself through the field. Up the inside goes Ollie Webb. Out of the exit of the corner now, coming down towards turn 7 as we see the 53 there moving to one side. That was Christian Coll, who he moved to one side on the track, and he might have an issue. But we'll see if he gets back up to pace. Maybe he was just not interested in battling. He's in his own race right now. We see Zanchetta still trying to hold off those very much elites making their way through, as Ollie Webb now moves up into 6th place overall.
Yeah, Ollie Webb on the charge then in the 777 car, as we rather anticipated. Ollie so vastly decorated in single-seaters in his junior career, and these days, of course, racing prototypes. He spent a lot of time in recent years racing in the Bicoles machine, or the Van Wall as it's now called, and of course in the LMP2 category as well. One of those drivers that you can really throw in anything and watch him thrive, and plenty of teams have taken advantage of that. He's also racing GTs this year as one of the cars coming to a halt there. That's the 19 of Zanchetta. That's a big shame for him.
It's a big shame, but Kolb is under pressure as well now as they make their way through in towards turn 3. And that looks like Seb Perez has got himself ahead now. Heading our way in towards turn 4. Perez has the outside line, looking to try and get the power down earlier as they'll make their way now towards the King of 5 and onwards towards turn 6, still running side by side at Kolb and Perez then as they head their way through in towards turn 5, as they head their way now on the run down towards turn 6 with Kolb still trying to battle away. Ollie Webb now fancies his chances round the outside in towards turn 6 there. Kolb lost out there to Seb Perez, but he's got to be careful about Ollie Webb here, who's all over the back of him as they head their way towards turn 7. Ollie Webb's looking for a move up the inside at the 7th turn then. Down the inside goes Ollie Webb. He manages to get the corner and get the position to boot as well. So Ollie Webb now moving himself up into 5th place.
Brilliant driving. The ever more smoky Stephen Edwards in the back of some of these shots is giving me cause for concern. It's been puffing a little smoke out for a majority of the race, so perhaps it is just tyre rub or something like that. As we see the 53 car of Christian Cole, we suspected an issue for that car, and now it seems that it has come to a halt. I believe that might be somewhere around turn 7. Unfortunately for Cole, that's race over. Looks like they're trying to get that recovery done under local yellows. Here comes Ollie Webb then, with, rather, here comes, Seb Perez being, yes, it is Ollie Webb attacking Seb Perez. Perez on the defensive then. Two world-class renowned GT drivers up there, or sports car drivers at the very least. Perez having to defence against Ollie Webb. He's done a lot of driving in these 2-litre Cup cars, though. He's going to be a formidable opponent. And, of course, Seb Perez, as I alluded to, he's driving towards the 2-litre Cup championship here today. However, I don't think that's going to prevent him from getting the elbows out.
Well, Vincent Cole as well might be getting the popcorn out at this rate. He's got front row tickets to see this battle between Perez and Webb as they make their way towards turn 4 then. Slightly different line being taken there by Ollie Webb in the hopes that he can get the power down earlier coming out of turn 4 as we'll head towards the King of 5 and then towards turn 6. Perhaps there's a chance here for Ollie Webb to find his way through. He's looking left, he's looking right to try the move. He's looking now down the inside, heading towards turn 6. Then Ollie Webb trying to be later on the brakes than Seb Perez, trying to get the cars slowed down there. But now Seb Perez will have the undercut then through in towards turn 6 and holds on to the position. This is a great scrap between Seb Perez and Ollie Webb.
It really is, and don't expect Kolb to be an idle bystander either. He has done a lot of racing in his young career. Started out in karts into junior single-seaters. I believe Formula Renault was his chosen path. Then through the NLS in GT3 cars as Webb goes to the inside. He manages to make his way up to 4th place, then gets past Seb Perez at Gancho. But my point being that Kolb is absolutely not just going to be a spectator in this one. He's now going to have a go at Perez as well. And he's got every bit the CV of the two men around him as well. So he should be just as competitive. Let's see, though, if Ollie Webb can now get away in 4th place or whether there's going to be a measure of retaliation from Seb Perez.
It's great stuff between this trio then. So Ollie Webb now 4th place there, 2nd, 3rd and 4th in class you're seeing there heading over the line. We still have Kareev leading the way by 18.3 seconds ahead of Bonamy Grimes, who has that 60-second penalty. We've got the 15 there of David Danglard, who rounds off the top 3 overall. And then we have a battle for 4th place overall. Ollie Webb, Seb Perez and Vincent Kolb as they make their way through in towards turn 2. And Ollie Webb and Seb Perez absolutely scrapping away. Brilliant to watch, brilliant to see. as they make their way now in towards turn 3. Ollie Webb does hold the fastest lap of this race with a 2:07.357 set on lap 24, so 4 laps to go. So we know the timing screen doesn't lie. He is one of the quickest drivers out there. He's managed to get ahead of Seb Perez and Vincent Kolb, and he'll be looking to see if he can make inroads to try and catch David Danglard for a place on the overall podium. It's 6.8 seconds, the gap.
I think that's surmountable. Danglard, the gap down to 6.1 at that sector split. So I certainly think that Ollie Webb is capable of doing it. He's got 25 minutes. Bonamy Grimes, incidentally, is closing in on Evgeny Kirev, isn't he? It's a shame, really, that that penalty looms large over his head. In fact, the last lap times, actually, Kirev was slightly quicker than Grimes, but the gap that was over 30 seconds is nonetheless down to about 18 between first and second place. However, with Bon Grimes' penalty, of course, Ollie Webb, in theory, should actually be running third right now, may well be closing in on Danglard for a pursuit at what eventually will be second place.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ollie Webb knows what he needs to do then. He's saved 1.7 seconds on this lap alone so far, the gap between himself and David Danglard, and that has come down even further, 5.1 seconds at the last timing line. Vincent Kolb then staying in touch with Seb Perez as they make their way through the final corner, and they'll make their way on towards the start-finish straight. That's Frank Stricker there in the 919, making his way onwards then towards the start-finish line. And we'll see there is David Danglard making his way in the 15 down towards turn 1. And look at the rate of knots here that Ollie Webb, Seb Perez and Vincent Kolb are catching him. This might be a case of in the next couple of laps, rather than some tenths of a second per lap. This may be a case of probably 2 or 3 laps, and Ollie Webb might have a chance of getting past David Danglard.
Yeah, Ollie is always so impressive, and we're seeing that out of him once again here. He had a brilliant showing, considering the circumstances. Not so long ago in the FIA WEC, I think he and the ARC Bratislava team may have been what will prove to be the final ever appearance of the Ligier LMP2 car. Of course, the Orica LMP2 in modern terms is the car to have, to the point where LMP2 has basically become a single make formula, even though there are 4 chassis available. They showed up with the Ligier, which is usually a couple of seconds off the pace, and Ollie was giving people what for in that car, right in amongst it. And yeah, just an example of the level of talent that Ollie has. Had some very good runs long before his sports car career, of course, in Formula Renault 3.5. Had a little go at Indy Lights as well, to just try and forge a career in America. After, I think he made a one-off appearance in 2011 that turned some heads. He got a full-time seat for 2012, but then returned to Europe. Evgeny Kirev running the flag of Cyprus, and there's quite a bit of Cypriot representation at the moment in motorsport. In particular, in Euronascar, Vladimiros Siotzis, who I have the privilege of covering on a regular basis for Euronascar. I call him the Super Cypriot because every time he wins a race, and he's been doing it a lot this year, every time he wins a race, he wears the Cyprus flag as a cape, and he has been absolutely sensational this year. Evgeny Kirev repatriated to Cyprus as well. We're seeing a lot more of that flag and hearing a lot more of that anthem in recent times.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the rate he's going right now, with 21 minutes on the clock, it's looking good so far as he makes his way down towards turn 6. It's been a really good pairing, Evgeny Kirev and Ramzan Orazbayev. They've both already had success this weekend. They're looking to add to that here in the 2-litre Cup for the Estoril Classics 2023. Bonamy Grimes in second place, but with that 60-second penalty to serve. David Danglard in third place, but I said it might have been a couple of laps, might have even been sooner than that. Ollie Webb is now nearly within a second of David Danglard now for a place on the overall podium, at least on the timing screens. We have Grimes' 60-second penalty to serve, but there we see Kirev then making his way out Gancho and making his way onwards then through the final couple of corners to start yet another lap here at Estoril. We'll see, I'm sure, Ollie Webb look to put a challenge to David Danglard. The question is, where will he make that move?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. It's a matter of when, not if, at this point, isn't it? Certainly, as Webb has already made the move. He's up to third place. We just saw the change on the timing screen, so Webb has done it. The dam has broken, and Seb Perez will be the next one to try and find his way through. Perez, of course, now about 3 seconds back from Webb. It looks like he's not quite able to match the pace of Ollie Webb. If anything, once he does close in on Danglard, he's going to have to worry about Vincent Kolb behind him. Kolb might find an opportunity to capitalise on.
He might do indeed. Kolb will just, as you say, wait in the background for now and see what happens. Keep that pace up. So we'll see then this battle for third place in the GTL Elites between Seb Perez and Vincent Kolb then. 0.6 of a second separates them right now as they head their way down towards the first corner. So Seb Perez hard onto the anchors there. We know he's very confident in the stopping power of the brakes underneath him. So he makes his way now towards turn 2 with Vincent Kolb following him all the way for the time being. There is Ollie Webb there, who's currently second in class. He will be classified as second overall once we get to the checkered flag. 16.5 seconds between himself and Bonamy Grimes. And we're looking at the last lap times there. Ollie Webb, last lap time, 2:08.3 compared to Bonamy Grimes' 2:11.084. So we're looking at 2 and a bit seconds per lap at the moment. Yeah, Ollie Webb is catching.
Apologies if you have covered this, Kieran, but if you haven't, I'll just point out that Stephen Edwards is in the pit lane, so unfortunately he's been in there for a couple of laps now. We saw an increasing level of smoke out of that car in both he and Matt Neal's stints, and it seems as though the 27 has taken an early bath, unfortunately.
That's such a shame because that car was really looking for a really good finish. Matt Neal had a very strong opening stint, getting himself up into second place overall. But unfortunately, as you say, the cars let them down there, unfortunately, towards the end of this race. Stephen Edwards was behind the wheel at the time. And as you mentioned, there was that bit of smoke building towards the back of the car, lap after lap. So unfortunately, they've had to park that car for the race. Meanwhile, then, we see there is David Danglard.
I was just going to say, and of course, being a Porsche 911, there are a lot of important hot bits at the back of the car. So if you've got smoke, chances are there be demons.
Chances are taken as well, as David Danglard we see in the picture there, now under pressure from Seb Perez and Vincent Kolb then for a place on the overall podium at the very least. But when will that move be made then from Seb Perez? It might not be in towards the first corner, although we know how confident Seb Perez is on the brakes. He's really closed up to the back of David Danglard right now as we get back onto the power. But Vincent Kolb got a better exit than Seb Perez, and they'll still make their way through in towards turn 2. We watch Ollie Webb heading his way through the third turn. I think they've stayed as they were, but Vincent Kolb ready and waiting to take advantage, especially as they try and find their way a route past Danglard. They're a bit of a lock-up there from the car in front. But yeah, pushing hard at the very least is Ollie Webb.
Ollie Webb has been squaring up that corner, kind of doing it in a V formation for the entire race. You know, he's been straightening out corner exit, but my goodness, that was taking it to the extreme. I don't think he meant that lockup. Danglard is going to have his work cut out for him here then, with Seb Perez and Vincent Kolb just behind him. Of course, being the owner of a national karting chain, I have to assume he has unlimited track time, but no circuit quite like Estoril as an indoor kart track. And Danglard defending there, doing a good job there of squeezing Perez. As soon as Perez committed to the inside, Danglard made sure to put the anchors on in front of him, give him no chance at a run around the outside of the corner. They approach the steep, very steep chicane of Gaucho, and Perez gets up the inside there. It was was frankly academic that Perez would eventually get through. It's now critical for Vincent Kolb that he gets by as quickly as possible, of course, because we know that he and Perez can compete on pretty much equal terms. Danglard, though, hasn't given up on this. He's trying to set himself up for a good run here through the Parabolica Ayrton Senna to carry some speed and maybe fire back at young Seb Perez.
Oh, absolutely. As you said, Danglard is not finished with this one just yet as we make our way onwards to the start-finish line, then with Vincent Kolb right behind him as well. There could be a move here for David Danglard going in towards the first turn as they make their way across the start-finish line with just over 15 minutes on the clock. Danglard moves to the right-hand side of the track, possibly looking for a move, but he brakes slightly earlier because he knows that the move wasn't quite on there. Vincent Kolb might try and take a different line through turn one, get the power down. He seems to like that move. Now he's looking for a move up the inside in towards turn two. Again, has to back out of that one. The door wasn't quite open as we head our way through turn three. Vincent Kolb now looking for a move down the inside at turn three. But again, no way through there. Door was always closing on Vincent Kolb there.
That was inches at best away from a slightly expensive trip to the Porsche Heritage Spares and Repairs department. Thankfully, Kolb continues on his way. Danglard, though, proving to be quite the adversary here for Kolb. Of course, that's all advantage Seb Perez, even though Perez hasn't really gotten away from Danglard as of yet. Of course, if Danglard can continue to keep Kolb behind him, that will strengthen Perez's hold on fourth place, which, of course, in 14 minutes' time, we firmly expect to become third place, courtesy of Bonamy Grimes' minute penalty.
You see there that Kolb is filling the mirrors of David Danglard right now, just reminding him he's there. I don't think David Danglard needed any reminding that Vincent Kolb was right on his tail. But as Seb Perez starts to get away, Vincent Kolb here knows this is a critical move. He'll go for it down the inside of turn 9. A big lock up there as he realises the door's closing. And again, Vincent Kolb has to stay behind. David Danglard doing his best to keep Kolb behind right now. And, well, he is defensive driving to the extreme. That's probably one of the widest Porsches we've seen all weekend.
Oh, I don't know about that. We've got some 935s out later on. We'll see. But yes, point taken. It's very good defensive driving from Danglard at this stage. Kolb in the slipstream once again. Of course, Danglard's still getting a bit of a tow from Perez ahead, which might somewhat minimise Kolb's advantage. Kolb, though, looking to the inside line. Danglard will need to fully commit to the braking here up against a seasoned pro driver in order to retain that fifth position, and he does so. I remind you, Kolb, a driver who's done a fair bit of historic racing, yes, but he's also raced GT3 cars on the Nürburgring Nordschleife in the VLN series, now the NLS series. A driver with no shortage of experience, and a driver that Danglard is really making life hard for right now.
Yeah, he really is. Kolb looking for a move up the inside at turn 4. Again, no way through. Danglard holding firm on his position. And this will be frustrating for Vincent Kolb. He can't find the way through. And he can see Ollie Webb, the speck, is getting smaller and smaller up ahead of him. Again, he'll try a move here, maybe towards the 6th turn. Again, he looks to the inside line. He's tried here before. Needs to be later on the brakes than David Danglard. Has to back out of that one. David Danglard getting a little bit sideways, of course, making the move, making that defensive move stick. But there goes then Vincent Kolb getting the better run out of the 6th turn. Now switches back to try and get the inside of turn 7. Again, no way through. David Danglard putting on a really good defensive display in the final 12 minutes of this race. They'll head now towards the chicane here of 9 and 10. Again, Danglard trying to defend here. Kolb didn't go for a move up the inside this time, but he's trying to focus on the exit of turn 10. Look at that, getting the power down and looking to try and draw himself side by side through in towards 11. He'll be on the outside of turn 12, but he has finally got that move done. That was a really good move there from Vincent Kolb to prioritise the exit of turn 10 to get the power down, and he's finally passed David Danglard, but they gave ourselves a really good battling display there.
Yeah, doff of the cap there to Danglard, who really did make that as hard as possible for Vincent Kolb. That was some really good driving. out of Danglard in the 15. That run to Parabolica Interior turn 6 on that lap really was hair-raising. I honestly think if he'd hit the brakes a metre later, he'd have been straight on. Some uncompromising stuff from Danglard. And as we know, based on when Ollie Webb got past him, he's still going to have a little look to see if he can maybe try and find his way past the number 269. However, it does seem as though now that Kolb has been released, he's building the car lengths. And of course, now with 2.1 seconds between Kolb and Seb Perez, Kolb has a new mission. And funny enough, it's the mission he had before he came up to the back of Danglard.
Yeah, get to the podium spots of his class in the GTL Elites. We'll keep an eye on those lap times as well. As you said, the current gap is around 2 seconds between Seb Perez and Vincent Kolb. For Danglard, though, well, he's done really well so far. And between himself and Bonamy Grimes, as we do remind you that Bonamy Grimes has a 60-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, he's just got to stay within that 60-second barrier, and he's doing well within that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yellow flags have been put out onto the circuit, now been withdrawn in favour of green flags. Of course, you mentioned that this is for the GTL Elite podium. It will be for the overall podium, of course, once the penalties kick in for Bonamy Grimes at the end of this race. Grimes, who currently runs second place, has a minute-long penalty that he is due to contend with at the end of this race. You see him there still fully sideways in the back of shot in second place. Evgeny Kirev's pace has slowed a little bit, hasn't it? 2:13.166 on the last lap. To a 2:10 of Grimes. Of course, Ollie Webb is out there doing 2:07s, pressing on as best he can. But I think that's something of a misnomer, because his Evgeny Kirev's last lap included a Sector 2 time that was about 3 seconds off anyone else. I think he actually may have been the cause of the brief yellow flag. And just looking at the back of that car, I saw a little bit of smoke there, and I just wonder if everything's okay with that car, because look at that smoke coming out of it. I'm just wondering if he's making mistakes because there's a little bit of oil going down onto his rear right wheel.
It could be that, and it could be just making sure it's a get home safe mode, isn't it? You have to do that manually to make sure you get the car over the line. But yeah, that smoke is starting to build, isn't it, as we head through the Parabolica Interior. So we make our way now onwards over the crest down towards the 7th turn. So this race isn't over yet for the likes of Ollie Webb. He's currently about 17 seconds back from Kareev with 8 minutes on the clock, and at the current rate here, as you already mentioned, Adam, 2:13.1 from Kareev, and it's a 2:07.5, so it's about nearly 5 seconds the difference between them per lap. And if we're going about 4 laps, maybe this could still be up in the air, really.
Well, yes, but as I did say, the last Sector 2 split for Kirev was a 1:06, and this time it was a 1:03, so that was an outlier of a lap, that 2:13. I think this time it'll be more like a 2:10, matching pace with the Grimes. But even then, to your point, Webb is closing in. He won't have enough time with 7.5 minutes left on the clock, unless whatever little issue this is for Evgeny Kirev gets worse. He wouldn't have time to close in sufficiently to end up taking the win once Grimes' penalty kicks in. However, there is that X factor of that smoke, and whether it gets worse. Meanwhile, even though Bonamy Grimes does have a penalty, he's under pressure for the on-track second position right now. Ollie Webb has closed into the rear of him. There's lap traffic to contend with as well, as Ollie Webb goes to the inside here at turn 1. Webb not quite able to get it done there, or is he? Because Bonamy Grimes somewhat left the door open there, and that's surely going to set Ollie Webb up for the fast turn 2. Unless he backs out of it, he might be wise to do so, but he does not, and he gets through into an on-track second position. Again, he didn't really need to make that move, whether he knows that or not, because Bonamy Grimes, of course, has that penalty over his head. But Ollie Webb got that done fairly easily, didn't cost himself any time doing so, and now he can keep pressing on and maybe hope that a late twist puts this race in his favour.
Yeah, Ollie Webb was looking for that move down the inside at turn one, wasn't he? And as you said, Grimes left the door open, I think in anticipation that Ollie Webb would take that line. When the door left open, Ollie Webb had second thoughts and thought, oh, no, I will go for that inside line. And in the end, it sized him up perfectly for the inside of turn two. He held his nerve there and got to that position ahead of Bonamy Grimes. So Ollie Webb now 15 seconds away from Kirev. The closing stages here, the final 6 minutes of this race, just keeping an eye on those lap times. Yeah, as you said, last lap for Kirev, a 2 minute 10.2, so he's sort of back onto his pace. We've got race control saying there's a double yellow at turn one, so perhaps someone off in the first corner, but see Seb Perez and Vincent Kolb. Now Kolb has closed in. He managed to dispatch of David Danglard after a few laps of battling there. Danglard putting up a really good defensive display, but now Vincent Kolb can focus on attacking Seb Perez here for what will be a place on the overall podium and the class podium to boot as well. So Vincent Kolb in the final 5 minutes, can he go one step better and get himself onto that podium?
Quite possibly so. Meanwhile, it was Jose Ruben Zanchetta that triggered the double yellow at turn one. He was some 15 seconds slower in the first sector that time by than one would expect, and that's dropped him a couple of places. Zanchetta in the car started by Turner, now down to 10th position. As you say, though, Kolb is coming for Perez. The gap is down to under a second. It was just over 2 seconds at the time that Vincent Kolb got past Danglard, so he's closed in a little bit. He's running out of time to make headway on Seb Perez. The two clearly quite evenly matched, but by the end of the race he might just get the opportunity to appear on the bumper of the 77, and of course he might be aided slightly by some lap traffic. There are a few cars between themselves and the checkered flag that they'll have to contend with, and sometimes it's simply not the back marker's fault. There isn't enough space, or the situation doesn't allow for you to just jump out of the way, and that could well turn against this battle for third place and maybe change the outcome a little bit. Of course, we remind you Bonamy Grimes is running third, but a minute penalty is going to drop him down the order.
Yes, and the timing screens will decide where that 60-second penalty will take him. It's probably going to take him within possibly the top 10 as it stands, maybe just outside it. Just looking at it, trying to work it out off the top of my head, it's definitely round about that area that he will eventually finish. But Vincent Kolb losing out a little bit in that last timing sector. 1.2 seconds it was at the last timing line, but they both, Perez and Kolb, had to contend with a little bit of lappery as they head their way through into a Gaucho now, turns 9 and 10. And there is this Siebenthal, who, as you said, with those blue flags, of course, is aware of those cars behind him, but it is up to them to try and make as safely through as possible. And normally when it comes to endurance racing, it's sort of a case of stick to your line and let the top runners find a way past you. You will see more often than not, though, drivers pull to one side along the straights and make it very clear that they're not taking the racing line this time around. But with 2.5 minutes left on the clock then, Vincent Kolb is, as you say, running out of time to try and catch and pass Seb Perez for a place on the podium. Then down towards turn one they go, and Vincent Kolb 1.1 seconds behind Perez at the start-finish line.
I honestly think that if this race were, say, 95 minutes long, Ollie Webb would take this win for himself and Zeiser, because the gap is 9.5 seconds right now. They've got 2 more laps, or effectively 1.5 laps left of racing now. This is the penultimate lap of the race. And Evgeny Kirov last time by a 2:11.1. As you see again, that's smoke, a 2:07.8 last time by for Ollie Webb. Again, I think if this race had another lap or so attached to it, another 5 minutes attached to it, Ollie Webb would close in. As it is, I think he's going to come achingly close. I think he's going to be about 2 seconds back from the number 11 come the end of this race at the current rate, and that's a real shame for Ollie, but he's put in a mighty shift.
Yeah, Kirev is just looking to nurse that car now to get to the checkered flag as he'll make his way through now in towards turn 12. And yeah, it is just a case now, get it to the checkered flag. He's got the final corner to contend with, and we'll start the final lap of this race then. Evgeny Kirev teamed with Ramzan Orazbayev, who themselves have already had success this weekend, are looking to add to that success here today. But Evgeny Kirev starts the final lap of the race here in the 2-litre cup, and we will have 41 laps completed. Ollie Webb there in the distance, trying to close in 7.7 seconds at the line. And we make our way through and towards the first corner for the final time here in the 2-litre cup. And again, one more lap to go for Vincent Kolb. He's now drawn himself within 3/4 of a second to Seb Perez. Now needs to try and, at the last time in line, that gap almost doubled to 1.5 seconds. But we'll keep an eye on that gap in the final lap here.
You just see Evgeny Kirev there going a bit sideways through turn 3. Clearly he doesn't feel anything's wrong with his car. He's seemingly having a bit of fun with it on the final lap. And Ollie Webb will maybe start to see some of that fishtailing by the time they get to the end of the lap. But for Kirev, it has been pretty well an exemplary drive here. He and Ramzan Orazbayev, who of course put the groundwork in the early stages, they will immediately switch focus to the endurance racing legends after this, where they'll be out there in a Maserati MC12, where of course they took the win yesterday in that race as well. So it could be a very winning morning for that duo. We'll wait and see how that pans out. For now, Evgeny Kirev just has a few corners and one back marker between himself and the race victory in the final 2-litre cup race of the season. Ollie Webb still closing in, so close yet so far, unfortunately for Webb. Bonamy Grimes will come through third, of course, but we know that won't last the transgression of the stewards, because a minute-long penalty is waiting in the wings for Bonamy.
Yeah, it's waiting to greet Bonamy there, but Kirev then makes his way around the final corner for the final time, and the pairing of Evgeny Kirev and Ramzan Orazbayev will take the victory here in the 2-litre cup. They take the checkered flag and the victory, and well, for Evgeny Kirev then, maybe a couple of laps and Ollie Webb might have caught, but it's a 90-minute race, and Ramzan Orazbayev did a fantastic opening stint to open up nearly 1 minute gap to everybody else, and it was a case for Evgeny Kirev to make sure that gap was held, and it was. Seb Perez across the line then, he'll take third place with Vincent Kolb eventually across the line to finish in fourth. Bonamy Grimes, you'll see him start to fall down the order here, and David Danglard then will make his way across the line momentarily. And this will be an interesting one, because yes, he does take over the class victory. David Danglard, who put on a fantastic defensive display in that battle between himself and Vincent Kolb, comes over the line to finish in 5th place overall, but takes the win in class. And we'll wait to see then the number 55 of Philip de Crane, who makes his way across the line, and see if Bonamy Grimes falls further down the order. He does, in fact. No, David Danglard doesn't finish at the top of the class, because it's now Philip de Crane who makes his way to the top of the order by 5 seconds. So David Danglard must have been succumbed to a penalty in that race. So it's actually Philip de Crane who takes over the class victory then. And Philip de Crane in the 55, the man from Belgium, takes that class victory.
Cruel, this game, isn't it, sometimes? The number 15 car must have been served a penalty at some point. Under investigation for speeding in pit lane, he was at some point, and got a 30-second penalty for speeding in the pits. So that's why Danglard has dropped, unfortunately. De Crane then claims 5th overall, and the first of the non-elite driver lineups for De Crane in the 55. Frankly, that was quite an anonymous race for the 55, wasn't it? Philip de Crane, we didn't speak about him terribly much, the Belgian racer, but 5th overall, that'll do nicely.
That will do very nicely indeed. And yeah, he'll be delighted with that one as he makes his way towards the paddock again. I'm not sure he'll quite know at this point that he's won the class, but nevertheless, he's won it by 5 seconds. And as always, the marshals out in full force are the Orange Army, doing an absolutely fantastic job once again this weekend, and simply without them we just cannot go racing. So a huge appreciation to all of our marshals and recovery crews around the circuit. But a win on the day then for Evgeny Karev, who takes the checkered flag alongside his teammate, and making sure that they have even more success this weekend alongside Ramzan Arazbayev. And a great opening stint from Arazbayev was a key part in that victory, and Evgeny Karev took over the reins and made sure that gap stayed as it was. Well, we saw that opening challenge as well from Christian Cole. What a race it might have been for him, but unfortunately he retired midway through this race and was unfortunately not able to get that car to the line. It could have been a great day for him, but unfortunately the car said no more. And an opening stint then from Philip Kadori. Saw him try and make his way through the field, but wherever you look there, Matt Neal as well, his opening stint, and again unfortunate that the 27 never made the line then. A bit of a moment for the 91 Francisco Sá Pinheiro at that time. There was also problems there for Dirk Peters, who never saw the track again after his visit to the pit lane. But Matt Neal made moves down the inside at turn 1, even when the move didn't seem to be on. Matt Neal found a way, as he so normally does, as we saw the battle of the sevens, the treble 7 and the 77, pretty much a race-long battle there. Bit of a moment as well for Bonamy Grimes, coming across a bit of lappery midway through the race as well, sent him into a spin and lost a mountain of time. He eventually got himself a 60-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That didn't stop him though from having a great battle with Max Moritz as well. Well, Ramzan Arazbayev handed over the car to Evgeny Karev with a minute advantage, and Evgeny managed to get to that gap, or keep it respectable there. And then we just saw brilliant battles of the sevens. The 77 there of Seb Perez taking over the wheel, and it was a great battle between himself and Ollie Webb. Ollie Webb eventually bested that one and managed to build the gap, but it wasn't shy of a few moments for our race leader Evgeny Karev. He managed to keep it on the track at most parts of this one. But what about the defensive display from David Danglard here against the fantastic battling there? Vincent Kolb had to wait a few laps to get it done at turn 10, but when he did, he made the move stick. And although a bit of a smoky end for Evgeny Karev, he managed to get the car to the checkered flag and take the overall victory. Well, that was a fantastic race all throughout, some great battling, and I mentioned as well that fantastic defensive display from David Danglard in holding back those cars as long as he did.
Yeah, absolutely. Danglard did a great job there fighting among some of the foremost pros on this grid. Very impressed with that performance from him. Evgeny Karev and Ramzan Arazbayev, though, in a league of their own. Something tells me that Kirov might quite like some chap called Sebastian Vettel, based on that helmet design. There's a whiff of Vettel about it, isn't there? Well, half of it. If you look at it from the right-hand side, anyway. If you look at it from the left, you realise it's more to do with the car's livery, which of course is a tribute to the one of the Kramer 935s of the 70s. But yes, at least from one side, it looks like a bit of a Vettel replica.
Oh, absolutely. And it's definitely rubbed off there. And Evgeny Karev taking the checkered flag then and holding off then. The gap at the end there, 5.7 seconds. And yeah, so he was getting back into the 2-minute 10s there, was Karev. So even with a couple of laps, it still would have been a bit of a challenge for Ollie Webb to catch. But for Karev, it was a 90-minute race, and that's what mattered. Zeiser and Webb finishing in second, Perez Kadori in third, Kolb and Moritz finishing in fourth, Philip de Crane then taking the class victory, fifth overall, David Danglard in sixth, Bonamy Grimes finishing on the podium there with that penalty, Boucher and Weiselbergen in seventh place there, with Zanketta across the line in ninth and the Edgio in 10th. But a fantastic race we had there, and what a race to open the day, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. No better way to get that one started. The 2 Litre Cup, always fabulous and great to have them with us once again at the Estoril Classics. Wonderful race that was.
Absolutely, and we'll be back with you shortly after this short commercial break. And welcome back then to the Estoril Classics 2023, where we're seeing our endurance racing legends head their way to the grid. As it stands then, a beautiful display of machinery making their way to the grid. 32 cars set to take the start of this 40-minute race. And just to give you a quick overview of the grid then, on pole position on the the pole position that goes the way then of Kiriv and Orazbayev. And of course, we see the 88 there of Kadori. The front two, I don't think, have made their way to the grid just yet, so they're just filing their way through. But it will be taken by the 14 of Kiriv and Orazbayev. Alongside them will be the number 25, that MG EX264 of Newton. On the second row, then, it's the 88 of Kadori. Alongside is the number 5 of Wunderlich. Row number 3 will be the number 50, the shared car of Foiveni and Reutmeier, and the number 53 of Mainz. Fourth row will be the number 60 of Jolly and the 71 of Espirito Santo and Bravo. Row number 5 will be the 63 of Eberson and Greensill, and alongside them will be the 22 of Gleiser. Row number 6 will be the 76 of Rion and Padmore, and alongside will be the 83 of Beltest and O'Connell. Row 7 will be the number 40 of Skirama and 190 of Eret. Row number 8 will be the number 29 of Traber and the 115, the Devis and Devis combination. Row number 9 will be 167 Maris, and alongside will be the number 38 Guénon. Row number 10 will be the 75 of Maxted Page, and alongside them the 35 of McLean. Row 11 is the 92 of Clegg, and alongside is the number 90 of Huez. Row number 12 is the 73 of Schindler, and alongside is the 311 of Ostman. Row 13 is the number 89 of Phillips, and alongside is the 102 of Driot. Row 14 is the number 100 of Whiteside, alongside is the number 18 of Fairbairn. And row 15 is the number 97 of Keating, alongside is the 74 of Aviron Violet and Bell Test. And on the 16th and final row is the 964 of Goudet and the 159 of Bonnet. Well, we saw, push come to shove, Kadori clipping the inside of Mike Newton going in towards turn 3 the last time we went racing with the endurance racing legends yesterday. Mike Newton then fought his way back up the field to second place. It was a race, though, that was dominated by the Maserati MC12, as we saw yesterday. Kiriv and Orazbayev are putting on a clinic there. They've won the previous race in the 2 Litre Cup. Can they go and make it 2 wins out of 2 for the day in the endurance racing legends?
You'd be unwise to bet against it. By no means is this going to be an uncompetitive race. I know that Mike Newton has the pace. They've repaired that car. He very kindly sent me a text message last night to let me know, yep, car's all repaired, which was jolly nice of him. I must credit him as well for letting me know which of the two chassis that he brought out to play for this race. I knew that he always owned HUO3, which was the car he won Le Mans with in 2005. I didn't know that he subsequently repurchased HUO5, the car that's with us, the car that he won the LMP2 class with in 2006. So he's got two of these MG EX264s from a total production of two, as well as his MG EX257 as well, the predecessor to this car, which was actually racing in LMP1 in 2004 after the dissolving of the LMP 675 category. Fabulous cars all throughout the field. It is heavily GT centric this weekend. We do have a few prototypes, though, of course, a pair of Lolas, as well as the unique Kyla K2, the American sports car. From the first three rows, four of the cars are powered by V12 engines, and that's always a good sign.
It's always a great sign, isn't it? The V12 power dominating the top end of the field, and there is that gorgeous Maserati MC12 rolling start here. It's a 40-minute race. There is that mandatory pit window. It is a 1-minute stationary stop, and pit window will open at 15 minutes and close at the 25-minute mark. So it's only a 10-minute window for drivers to pit in and exchange drivers if they so desire. It's a grid here that's pretty much dominated by one driver entries. There are a handful of shared drivers, or shared cars, I should say, but the more dominant is the single driver entries. But will be the Maserati MC12 that will lead the pack then on the formation lap down towards turn one for the first time. And Kadori in that gorgeous Aston Martin DBR9 will be hoping for a cleaner turn three, because he did catch the end of Newton and put him into a little bit of a half spin there. The stewards did find Kadori at fault for that one and awarded a penalty as such. So for Kadori here, it'll just be to get a cleaner start this time, because we know he is quick in an Aston Martin.
I'm anticipating a very exciting battle once again in GT2C, especially if the timing screen is to be believed in regard to starting drivers, because Espirito Santo, the GT2C pole sitter, that I think is 2005 onwards GT2 cars, he will of course hand over to Ricardo Bravo, who is an arch pro driver, and we saw him make his way up the order yesterday. John Emberson will hand over to Nigel Greensall, and Rijon will hand over, of course, to Nick Padmore. That will be a serious dogfight at the end of the race in GT2C, as you see the grid there again.
Yeah, Evgeny Kiriv is due to start on that starting grid, but I believe it's going to be Uruzbaev, because Kiriv has just come off of the back of that 2-litre race. If he's managed to find the start of this race, that's quite impressive. But I think it's more likely going to be Uruzbaev who takes the start in that Maserati MC12. Mike Newton will start alongside him there. And as we take you through the grid as well, the row 8 is Mark DeVries and Eric Marie, and we've also got Dominique Quinor and Lee Maxted Page rounding off the 9th row of the grid. And then we've got row 10, Paul McLean, Jason Clegg, Oliver Huez and Gunther Schindler, Heiko Ostman and Paul Phillips rounding off row 12. Row 13 has the 102 and the 100. Row 14, Peter Fairbairn and Stephen Keating. Row 15, Pierre Avron Villet, and I believe Gaudet is on the back as well. What we see there, one of them being the Morgan. It really does stand out, that Morgan Aero 8. I believe it was made as part of the Centenary, which took part in FIA GT3, but I'm happy to be corrected on you by that one, Adam. But yeah, it definitely stands out, the Morgan. Morgans always do, and I think that's part of the reason why I love them so much.
Yeah, that car is pretty special. It was actually developed by the French Auto GT outfit, which was the brainchild of Jacques Lafitte and Jean-Pierre Jabouille. So two French Formula One names behind the development of that car. It says 2009 on the entry list, but it is a 2008 vintage machine. So much history, so many fabulous cars to talk about, though, over the course of the next 40 minutes, and plenty of talented drivers at the wheel, too. So we might not even get a chance to touch on the history, because I expect this race to be absolutely fabulous.
Well, there's only one way to find out things. There's one driver already peeling off into the pits and bringing the car in on the formation lap. The race hasn't even started yet, unfortunately, but when those lights go out, we will be racing here for our second race of the Endurance Racing Legends, and we are underway then on the run now down towards the very first turn. Who will get the better start then? Mike Newton is on the outside then of Kirev then as we make our way through in towards the first corner as one of the Ford GTs tries to go down the inside, almost 3 wide through there, but keen eyes now will be on turn number 3 then as the Maserati gets away in towards turn 3. This time Mike Newton faces the right way going through turn 3 and is able to press on there, and then it's Kadori rounding off the top 3. Wunderlich I think was in 4th place there as they made their way through the picture, and then there's a pack of Porsches making their way now through turn 3.
Yeah, that's the GT2C lead battle, and unfortunately it's down a Corvette because John Emberton was the driver that came into the pit lane. We were talking about how Emberton and Greensall in the X-Factory Corvette C6 RGT2 chassis 001, the very first car off the production line, unfortunately has come into the pit lane, so we're not going to see Greensall as a factor in that battle. Yellow flags are being displayed somewhere around the circuit. The GT2C lead, though, still with Espirito Santo, despite a spirited start from Rijon in the 76. Rijon in the 76 car, that's an ex-IMSA Performance Matmut car, Raymond Narac's organisation. The French team, one of the foremost Porsche organisations at Le Mans and in GT racing through the 2000s and the 2010s. A good start, though, from Martin O'Connell. He's got that Ford GT GT1 up to 8th place now. He's just got around Jolly in the Kyla K2. And the Ford GT GT1, one of the very last GT1 cars ever built, showing its mettle here in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. Possibly Grenard and Ostman, the 38 and the 311, might have been involved at turn 6. That was what the yellow flag was for. They have now passed through sector 2, but they have fallen all the way down to 28th and 29th position, respectively. It does say Kirev is behind the wheel of that Maserati as we make our way now towards turn 4. Mike Newton chasing him all the way then, as the top 2 have started to break away now. Philip Kadori there in 3rd place with Franz Wunderlich in 4th. Then we have the number 50 car of Stefan Reutmeier rounding off the top 5. And then we have Richard Mines in 6th place.
I do wonder, because the 14 car team manager was called to race control just before the formation lap. I just wonder if they maybe made the point that, you know, you guys have 2 drivers, right? You didn't have to put the guy who finished the last race into the car for the start of this one. Didn't have to delay the grid. But maybe that was the point raised. Nonetheless, I am expecting this overall battle to go on throughout the race. I think that Mike Newton could well be a challenge here for Kirev and the Maserati over the course of the race distance. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Of course, Newton's car being a bit lighter, maybe a little bit better on the tyres as well, as the Corvette, as we can see on circuit, has made its way out there. Emberton has come out, but he's almost a lap down. So unfortunately, well, they'll have to rely on safety car and or a Nigel Greensall special to be a part of the GT2C honours.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have seen one of those before. So take nothing away from that as well. Battle ensuing then as we make our way down in towards the first turn there. And that's Mines and Reutmeier, I believe that's battling away for position. And Reutmeier getting the upper hand at the moment. Mines dropping back to 5th place in class as we make our way onwards towards turn 3. At the moment then Stefan Reutmeier holding off the attack of Richard Mines in the Aston Martin DBR9, heading our way now onwards towards turn 4.
Yeah, Reutmeier at the wheel then of that A-level or ex-A-level engineering bi-turbo Porsche, the Motor Reutmeier Sport organisation, responsible for running a few of the cars on this grid. And of course, at the wheel of a car as well is Reutmeier. So I'm sure he's got a bit of a busy day, a bit of a dizzy workload to deal with today, but driving the car brilliantly at the moment, up to 5th overall in the race and 4th in class as well for Stefan Reutmeier, the Austrian racer and Porsche specialist.
Yeah, certainly making his way now through 9 and 10. On the power he goes then. Wunderlich is just ahead of them in the number 5 of the white Aston Martin DBR9. As now a top battle for 4th place in class, 3rd place in class, make their way through in towards the final corner. Kirev leading the way in GT1B by 10 seconds ahead of Philip Kadori, and then it's Franz Wunderlich in 3rd place. And then it's this battle here, Stefan Reutmeier and Richard Mines battling away for 4th place in class. Shimama as well in the number 40 is not too far away from the 83 machine of, well, that's going to be O'Connell. So good to keep an eye on 6th place in class in that battle as well.
Yeah, all 4 GT1 battle going on here then. The Mark VDS car, of course, one of the customer teams to Mattek Competition. They were the team that developed the car, Mattek Competition, and it is their 2009 development chassis that Martin O'Connell drives. They entered the car into the FIA GT Championship in its final year to prepare for the 2010 FIA GT1 World Championship season. The Skimama car entered by Mark VDS, the team that, of course, went on to campaign BMW so successfully in the fledgling days of the Blancpain Endurance Series, which later went on, of course, to become what we know today as the GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup. Yeah, Mark VDS, a team with a lot of history, and that Ford GT1, I think their first entry onto the World Championship stage in any form of competition.
Absolutely. You'll see this is the Corvette then, the number 63, and that's just John Emberson behind the wheel, having to recover after that not so great start, unfortunately. But as you said, we'll see what they can do for the rest of this race. It is a case of how high could we go after, unfortunately, a bit of a false start, having to visit the pit lane before the race had even begun. This is the battle, though, for 3rd place in GT1B. Reutmeier and Mines have worked together almost to try and catch Wunderlich here. I'm not sure that was the intention, but they have caught Wunderlich for 3rd place in GT1B. We now have that 3-car battle, the white Aston Martin at the head of this battle at the moment. And as you can see, Franz Wunderlich is really focused in now. He's gained 1.8 seconds over, Reutmeier has gained on this last few laps. So really pushing on now. And as you can see, Mines just keeping tabs on Reutmeier. Lost nearly half a second on the 3rd lap of the race, but has really been keeping on the pace of Stefan Reutmeier as we head our way now down towards turn 6.
I think this is telling of just how good Reutmeier is behind the wheel of a Porsche, or perhaps the development work that they've done to kind of perfect that car. In period with A-level engineering in 2004 and 2005, the car frankly wasn't that special. It had a couple of decent finishes in the Le Mans Endurance Series, but never really set the world alight. Of course, bi-turbo Porsches were by no means a rare thing in the mid-2000s. A lot of them racing in Bell Car and indeed the French GT Championship to good levels of success. But certainly, on paper, nowhere near the car in terms of development, in terms of budget, in terms of success that the Aston Martin DBR9 is. And yet Reutmeier is making life very hard for Franz Wunderlich, as we can see, and has already got himself past Richard Mines, of course.
Yeah, Reutmeier looking to keep himself in tabs. Stefan Reutmeier still on tabs with Wunderlich. They lost about 3/10 on that last lap, but still within that striking range, still enough to be that orange and silver speck in Wunderlich's mirrors as we head our way in towards turn 3. Reutmeier here able to just keep that pressure on in that Porsche 996. Keep tabs on him at the moment, as Richard Mines has started to slightly fall away from that battle for 3rd place in class. as they make their way through towards turn 5 on towards the Parabolica interior. But we see then that is your battle there. Wunderlich in third in class. We've got Reutemeyer. Again, two different lines being taken through in towards turn 6 there. Both seem to be as quick as each other at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a seemingly amount of equal performance between them. Of course, we are heading towards the end of this season as well. And I believe it will be Philip Kaduri in this rather well-populated GT1B class that will take the championship within this categorization. Again, the point standings maybe not at the foremost of everyone's minds in this race, but certainly that will be the case by the looks of it, that Kaduri will go away with the GT1B categorization. And yeah, wonderful to see so many of these fabulous cars being campaigned on a regular basis, which has been made possible by the endurance racing legends and Peter Auto. Oh, the 74, another of the bi-turbo Porsches into the gravel at turn 1. That's the ex-PSI car, an ex-Bell car machine, this, the 74 car of Pierre Aviron Violet and Jean-Marie Belteste, unfortunately in that gravel, and looks fairly well beached.
Yeah, unfortunately so, and that could spell the end of the day, or at least for this race, for Veron Violet and Jean-Marie Belteste. The yellow flags do cover at turn 1 at the moment. We'll await to see what sort of recovery job is required for that point. It will be covered by yellows at this moment. The pit window opens in about 3.5 minutes time. It'll only be open for 10 minutes. So in these machines right now, we're looking at possibly six laps window, maybe 7 if you really push it. Yeah, it's not a long window for a minute pit stop either. So the minute pit stop you almost lose a lap. It's not quite you lose a lap, depending on what category you're racing in, but it's a good well near 3/4 of the lap you lose in the pit lane.
When we have a look here at the 964, I must say I'm not sure of the exact history of this car from Christophe Gaudet. Listed as a Carrera RSR, it's got quite an advanced body kit on it, whether that might have been one of the entries from the likes of Freisinger in the BPR Global, or perhaps even a car from Japan. Quite a few teams worked on significant body kits to try and get the most out of their 964 in the early days of GT competition, where it was stacked up against cars like the Venturi 400s and even Bugattis implemented in the early days of GT. Of course, the Ferrari F40, an obvious choice in 1994, as we see finally the 71 car making its way back towards the circuit, or rather I should say, sorry, the 74 car making its way back towards the circuit. So the Belteste and Aviron Violet twin turbo 996 is back on the circuit now, albeit it's taken about a lap to free it from the gravel.
Yeah, but it is free now, so I thought that might have been the end of the day, but not so, as they are rejoining onto the circuit, as you rightly said. Just saw the top of that Porsche limping its way back towards the track then. Kirev leads the way then, 16.6 seconds ahead of Mike Newton then, and it's Philip Kaduri rounding off our top 3 overall. That's Mark Jolly then in the number 60, racing away in that Kayla K2. I believe was a modified development of the Chevron B71. Looking pretty good right now. 5.3 seconds behind Gleiser and about 2 seconds clear of O'Connell right now.
Now you just see going through shot the Marcos LM500 of Stephen Keating. Keating has had this car, I think, for the better part of 18 years at this stage. He actually raced it in the British GT Championship as far back as 2006 in the GTC class of that category at the time. It was previously a Millennium Motorsport entered car, the likes of Tommy Erdos starting or making the early steps in his GT career in an LM500. I believe the car started its life as right-hand drive. I know that by the time it was in British GT, it had somehow been converted to left-hand drive by an intermediary owner in mainland Europe. Whether Keating has converted it back or not, I'm not sure. It's still left-hand drive. I can see him on the left side of the car. So it's been through some changes over the years, but it is more or less faithful now to its original factory spec, and that LM500. Quite a revered car in the Marcos community. Of course, its big brother, the mighty, imposing, wide-bodied, low-slung LM600, a familiar car not just to anyone who's a fan of GT racing, but specifically to fans of GT racing here in Portugal. A few of them raced in the Spanish GT Championship and made regular appearances at Estoril throughout the 2000s. Very successful machine, the LM600.
Yeah, we've got our leader then. It has changed over, so it's updated to Ramzan Urazbayev, who we sort of figured might have started this race initially due to the fact that his teammate had only just finished the 2-litre cup. So it has now changed over now. So it is Ramzan Urazbayev who is behind the wheel of that car and will hand the car over to Evgeny Kuriv towards the end of the race, which the pit window is now open. So drivers will be able to pit in the next 10 minutes and hand over the reins if they so wish, if they so can, to the next driver to take over. If not, it is still a 1 minute, it's the 15 to 25 minute window. It is a 1 minute stationary stop here for our endurance racing legends.
Yeah, absolutely. So first opportunity for most of these drivers to make a stop if they so choose. And as with the race in 2-litre cup earlier on today, Olivier Huez there in a spin in the B2K40 on the entry to Parabolica Ayrton Senna. We saw that car stationary there. In fact, I think it's been stationary there for a little while. So perhaps that car is in strife. Huez maybe struggling to get the car fired up once again as the MC12 comes across the line. Urazbayev, though, once again has absolutely succeeded in his task of building a cushion for Evgeny Kuriv, who himself, of course, is absolutely no slouch. He is as well as a keen historic racer. He's also done an amount of modern racing. He's also done some rally raid competition, even as Evgeny Kuriv. By no means is he a slouch. But he will maybe have to contend with Mike Newton in the second phase of the race. We'll have to see how things shape out towards the end of the race. And Newton pressing on in the lovely Lola MG EX264.
Car through in towards turn 4, of course, 20 seconds away from Urazbayev. But as you say, Mike Newton knows there's the second phase of this race after the pit window is closed, where he might be able to try and close the gap down. Urazbayev, just like we saw in the first race, trying to build the gap, the biggest gap that he can, to then hand over to Evgeny Kuriv to manage to get to the end of the race, try and get over the line as the first car. Mike Newton, the gap is 21 seconds at the moment. And he does make a move there on a little bit of flappery. Philip Kadori is only 8 seconds down the road as well. He's managed to build really good lead there over Stefan Reutmeier in that Porsche 996. It's about nearly 22 seconds. Philip Kadori is ahead of that one. We have yellow flags there. I believe they're at turn 6 at the moment. Yeah, there you can see the... It's actually indicating that's at the top of the hill at the chicane. So maybe an incident there. But whatever the issue was, it's now been cleared. We're back under green flags around the whole circuit, and we have 6 minutes and 20 seconds left of the pit window being open.
Yeah, so the window won't be open for too much longer. Both of our top two overall will need to consider their stop in short order. Kadori, of course, also owing us a pit stop. Everyone in the top 5 owing us a stop at this juncture. There's one of the, I believe it's 3 ex-IMSA Performance Matmut cars out on the circuit. The last car through shot there. That is the 167 entry of Eric Maris. That actually, again, is another instance, much like Mike Newton in the 25. That's another instance of car and period driver still aligning all these years later. It was raced in 2014 by Eric Maris and the IMSA Performance Matmut crew in the 2014 Le Mans 24 Hours, as well as the 2014 European Le Mans Series. Good to see that Olivier Huez has got the B2K40 running again after it was stationary for a while. And as we hit the mid-stage of the race, predictably, the pit lane is really starting to fill up.
Very, very busy. It's a case as well for drivers. Some of them may leave it as late as possible so that they can try and get a clearer pit lane. It doesn't always work like that, but as you see, they're 5 minutes until the pit window closes, and then we'll have 15 minutes to sort the order out towards the checkered flag. As we see there, that's the 74 machine. That's currently Pierre Averon Violet, who found himself in the gravel at turn 1 a few laps ago, has rejoined the circuit, of course, and is putting laps in there, but they are currently classified as 29th place overall and 8th in class at GT1B.
Yeah, wonderful to see that the car is at least out there once again. The number 74 car, one of the Bell car Porsche bi-turbos, as I alluded to earlier on. There's mines in the always ever so slightly peculiar sight of a Vitaphone Aston Martin. Of course, we covered that in detail yesterday, but effectively Maserati couldn't come to play at Le Mans courtesy of the regulations, so Vitaphone put together an effort in collaboration with Straka to take an Aston Martin DBR9 out to the Le Mans 24 Hours in Vitaphone colours, and that is the car that we see in front of us now in the hands of Richard Mines. The DBR9, of course, such a formidable force, debuted in 2005 in the exact same year and indeed in the exact same race as Chevrolet debuted the Corvette C6R. Both cars made their competition debuts at the Sebring 12 Hour. The DBR9, of course, went on to so many great successes even in that season, including the Taurus Trophy at Silverstone. Unfortunately, I think ran out of fuel towards the end of the Le Mans 24 Hours, one at Sebring as well. But yeah, the Aston Martin DBR9 had a 6-year tenure in top flight racing, came to an end as the FIA GT1 World Championship petered out at the end of 2011. Car number 50, Stefan Reutmeier. So this is a big development, under investigation for overtaking under yellow flags, if that's true. Oh, Paul Daniels in an incident there with the 38 car by the looks of it. That's, sorry, Paul Phillips in the 89 car there. That's the 997 GT3R in the Invitational class. The 38 is Dominic Gunat in his 997, as also slowing is Skimama in the number 40, Mark VDS Ford GT1, and he's had a little bit of damage on the rear. There's a little bit of a jink on the rear bodywork, but of course that was there yesterday as well. But all drama as we approach the end of that pit window, two of the Porsches coming together out there on circuit.
Yeah, we've got the top four all into the pit lane. As you rightly said there, Reutmeier under investigation for overtaking under yellow, so we'll see how that resolves itself. But a big portion of damage to the front there for Paul Phillips, and you can see fluid leaking from the car as well, so that's never a good sign. But Paul Phillips there, I think, is just trying to roll the car backwards. Yeah, we've got cars just going through right on the inside and the exit of Gaucho there. And we'll see what the development is, but with fluid leaking like that, that's never a good sign.
No, it's a radiator. That's always what happens with a Porsche. Front-end contact on a Porsche 911 almost invariably ends in radiator damage, and unfortunately, despite Paul Phillips's affinity with the Porsche brand, he is no exception. The Sun Viva man who has been backing and driving Porsches with that brand for the better part of 25 years, if not a little bit more than that, but unfortunately won't be seeing the end of that race with his coolant making its way across the Gaucho apexes as we speak, unfortunately. Might be a bit slippery there as well, so hopefully the drivers are cognizant of that. Final few pit stops then have been made. Just 40 seconds remain of the window, and you can see that the 38 997 GT3 RSR is actually still there as well. So Gona hasn't managed to get the car started just yet. Safety car has just been deployed. Paul Phillips has managed to get himself to the final corner, but has had to pull over. I suspect the car just let go on him there with the radiator damaged. But a safety car makes things very, very interesting, of course, because a great many of these cars will be on the same lap. Given the competitiveness of the field, given the shortness of the race, we could now be in for a grandstand finish.
We could indeed, and Karev has just taken over that car now. That Maserati is going to have Mike Newton all over the back of him on the restart here. Philip Kadori will get himself into the top 3 as well, but I wait to see what the number 50, I know you've said Michael Verveni is one to watch as well. He'll be right onto the back of Philip Kadori. Richard Mines is in the 53 as well. Wunderlich and O'Connell be ready and waiting to take advantage of that one. But yeah, as you said, many of these drivers are currently on the lead lap, or at least a lead lap of their class rivals. So it really will give us an idea of what's going to happen. The safety car there has now picked up Kiriv and will now slow the field down. At least there's Mike Newton also catching as well. He wasn't too far behind Kiriv anyway. Safety car now picks up the leader, slows the pack down so that we can get the recovery process underway.
Well, this is going to make for an incredibly interesting resumption of the race. And I tell you what, Stephen Keating is going to be doing Mike Newton all manner of favours. Funny enough, 2 ex-teammates to Tommy Erdos, or rather, Tommy Erdos was driving that LM500 at one point. Did actually do some development driving for Keating to see if the car could be improved, the LM500. But my point being that Keating there in the LM500 is just in front, of course, of Kadori in the Aston Martin. And when we do go back to green flag conditions, which I'm sure we will, with over 13 minutes of this race left remaining, Kadori is going to be rather hampered by the LM500 up ahead of him, which, no disrespect to the car, is nowhere near as powerful as the Aston DBR9 or the 2 cars ahead. He's going to be a sitting duck, and he's not going to be able to get overtaken until they cross that line.
What a handful of cars now are under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. Number 40, Philip Skimama. 38, Dominic Guenot, who we saw was faced the wrong way at the top of Gaucho. 311, Heiko Ostman. Number 73, which is Gunther Schindler. And the 964 are Christoph Gaudet, all under investigation for speeding in the pit lane.
None of our front runners then, mercifully, but we'll have to see how this one unfolds once we do go back to racing action. We see there in the queue just behind Kadori, a car I've been wanting to take a look at and highlight, is the ex-Conrad Motorsport Porsche 993 GT2. We're spoiled by the 993 GT2 population in this race. There's a number of them, but the white and green car you see just turning into turn 7 there, that car is driven by Peter Fairbairn, the South African racer who for many years actually has been racing 993s. I think you can trace his 993 history back 20 years, perhaps more. He's been driving them for a long time. He actually entered a 993 Carrera RSR, which is kind of the naturally aspirated equivalent to the 993 GT2, a bit less power in Brit cars. As recently as 2012, he entered a 993 in the 24-hour race, no less. So he very much firmly believes in the idea of racing a classic, the idea of taking cars out to racetracks rather than letting them sit dormant in a collection. And that is shared by Paul McLean, and it is McLean's GT Classics organisation that is running both McLean's own car and indeed the number 8 of Peter Fairbairn in this race today.
Yeah, we now have, remember the number 50 was under investigation for overtaking under yellow flags. Well, that has now been awarded a 30-second time penalty to car number 50. So Stefan Reutmeier, who was behind the wheel at the time, the penalty is awarded to the car. So Michael Faveni will have to serve 30 seconds. once the checkered flag has fallen. We've also got that 60-second penalty there for, I think that was 964 it was on the screen, for speeding speeding in the pit lane, but quite a few of them. I think all of those that were under investigation for speeding in the pit lane have now been given a time penalty to boot, which is kind of what we were expecting. Number 40, 38, 311, and 73 have got 30 seconds of penalties. The 964 has got 60 seconds, all for speeding in the pit lane.
And not to beat this drum too much, although I absolutely am, but I think we could have an interesting situation as well in GT2C. Ricardo Bravo is running third in class right now. I'm just waiting to see whether or not he's on the same lap as the class leader. It's fluctuating a little bit on my timing screen right now. I'm looking to spot that 71 car and whether it is behind the safety car queue behind the leader, in which case the battle might not be quite as fun as anticipated. But there certainly will be some moving and shaking in GT2C. The car just turning through shot there, the red and white 996 RSR of Nick Padmore, just behind Lee Maxted Page. Padmore knows what he's doing. He won the Classic F1 races here last year at the Estoril Classics. One of the foremost historic races in the game, and he'll be carving his way through the field. I have no doubt of that. It does look, however, though, that Traber has a significant advantage in GT2C. I think the safety car has worked in his favour. The safety car, incidentally, is no more. We're back to green flag.
We are indeed. So Kirev will now lead them now down towards turn 1, but here comes Mike Newton looking for a move down the inside in towards the first corner, later on the brakes, and Kirev there looking for evasive action in the background there, but Mike Newton takes the lead early now in towards the first corner with 8.5 minutes left on the clock. Mike Newton was not hanging around, was he? He wanted that move done early. That's exactly what he's done. Now Kirev has Philip Kadori to contend with behind him. Now that is for the lead battle in GT1B. Heading our way now in towards turn 4. Kirev has got a bit of defending to do here from Philip Kadori as they now power their way out of turn 4.
Well, this is going to be reminiscent of battles we'd see at Le Mans in the late 2000s. At the 24 hours on a circuit like Le Mans, you'd have the Astons, you'd have the Corvettes, the Aston up the inside for second place. Evgeny Kirev struggling in the early going, then Kadori gets through into second place. And that is also, of course, a move for the GT1B lead. Kadori, who is going to take the championship in GT1B today as well, right up there and moving past Evgeny Kirev. The safety car maybe not working in favour of the Maserati crew. Newton, your overall leader. Kadori and him have already had an incident this weekend. Let's see if they can have a clean battle this time. There are yellow flags elsewhere around the circuit. Don't know quite whom that is for. It might be for Venny, actually, in the Reutmeier 996 by Turbo, because that car's dropped a few places. Nonetheless, it's Newton that leads across the line, and it is a proper echo of what you'd have seen around 2005, 2006. The LMP2 cars slower in a straight line. As you'd go down the Mulsanne, you'd see the GT1 Astons, Corvettes and Celines close in on the LMP2, but then around the corners, of course, the LMP2 would have the advantage. It would often work out about equal. On this occasion, though, the LMP2 at a circuit that suits it far better than Le Mans, up against a GT1 car. Olivier Huez, though, unfortunately, in his B2K40, just now limping back up to speed. I think he may have had the yellow flag. That car has really been in the wars in today's race.
Yeah, it really has. That safety car procedure is under investigation, so we'll keep you updated with how race control deem that suitable to address. Philip Kadori now 1.4 seconds behind Mike Newton then as we make our way onwards then towards turn 7. Kirev has not really lost the back at the moment, so he's still sticking with it at the time being. So looking to see if he can hold on to second place in class. There's Richard Mines just making his way over the crest and making his way now down towards turn 7. So he looks to try and see if he can in the closing stages, it'll be a tough ask to close in 14 seconds in 5 minutes. So he'll just be looking now to try and lock in a podium position in class.
Nick Padmore just ahead of this 73 car that we're focusing on. That's Schindler, of course, second in GT2A right now. Nick Padmore just going through shot. He is fourth in the GT2C class as Olivier Huez has come to a halt. That is on the run towards turn 6 rather than what the graphic is showing there. So that car is stationary. But it is indeed, as I suspected, a slightly safety car skewed battle in the GT2C class because Traber in the 29 has got basically a lap on the rest of the pack. Ricardo Bravo has gotten past Eric Maris for second in class, and now Maris is being hunted down by Nick Padmore, potentially for the final spot on that GT2C podium. Overall positions being contested. Martin O'Connell in the much newer Ford GT GT1, rather rudely dispatched there by the driver of the number 22, Sebastian Glaser, in the V3 Racing 993, one of the later 993s, the GT2 Evos. Challenging again, and his sparring partner from yesterday, Jully in the number 60, the Kyla K2, is now his next target. That's a familiar sight. We've seen a lot of those two cars together this weekend.
Haven't we just, as they make their way down towards turn 6, of course, they've got the double waved yellows there, so they won't be able to overtake for the green flags, of course, but power out of turn 6 then on the rise towards turn 7. Now there is Oliver Huez, who is looking to just try and limp it back now. He did manage to get that car going again. Jully and Glaser now looking to battle towards the end of this race, which should be a really fantastic sight to see. They've got someone ahead of them there. That's going to be the, we mentioned the 73, I think that was, just ahead of them. So they've got a little bit of lappery to contend with either way. Oh, that's a tight space there for Mark Jully, but he managed to squeeze his way through as Gunther tries to find his way between the Red Sea, I guess. Glaser managed to find his way through as well, as we see them.
Second in GT2C here, side by side. Sorry, Eric Maris under threat from Nick Padmore. It looked like Padmore might do it up the inside there as we panned away from them. So that was for 12th overall and third potentially in GT2C. Padmore has turned a 5-second gap into a 1/10th gap, so I don't think that battle is going to take long for Padmore. Maris, though, as we alluded to, has raced at high levels in ACO competition. He might be able to get the elbows out on Padmore. We'll have to see.
Jully and Glaser now battling away for 5th place overall, as they'll now make their way towards turn 4. Jully here looking to keep himself ahead in the final 2.5 minutes of this race. White Newton has managed to open up the gap between himself and Philip Kadori to 2.8 seconds. Kadori looking to hold on to the GT1B class victory ahead of Kirev and Richard Mines. Mines there is about 22 seconds back, so he's looking to hold station for 3rd place in class. 5th place overall is still yet to be decided. Mark Jully against Sebastian Glaser, and there is your overall race leader making his way across the line to start the penultimate lap here of the endurance racing legends.
Yeah, this MG EX264 then was purchased at the end of last year, actually, I understand, by Mike Newton. He was telling me all about it. He out-qualified it last year at the Le Mans Classic and then proceeded to buy it off of the previous owner. But Kaduri is slowing. Philip Kaduri, right at the end of the race, the driver who I remind you is set to win the GT1B classification in the championship, his DBR9, drawing to a halt right at the end of the race. That gives Evgeny Kirev 2nd place once again. It'll also promote Richard Mines up to the overall podium. But the DBR9 chassis 5, well, doesn't seem to have anything more to give, unfortunately, in today's race. On this penultimate lap, the car has faltered.
And faltering as well will be a couple of penalties to be awarded as well. It's going to be to number 60, Mark Jolly. He's got himself a 30-second time penalty for overtaking under the safety car. Gleiser doesn't care though at the moment, as he's looking to try and get this pass done out on track. But of course they're under the yellow flag, so Gleiser has to hold firm for now. He doesn't want to be hit by a penalty for overtaking under yellow. So now for Gleiser, he doesn't have to make this move out on track. But as soon as you tell a driver that, I don't think they hear you properly, because they'll still go for the move anyway.
I'm in a bi-turbo Porsche. How do you expect me to hear that kind of thing? Gleiser will be saying from the cockpit. Up to 4th overall, of course, these two now, with that issue for Kaduri. That is a big development. Mike Newton, meanwhile, onto his final lap of the race. The man who took the clean sweep in Endurance Racing Legends last year here at the Estoril Classics. That was immediately kiboshed by the performance of the MC12 this time around. But Mike Newton in the EX264 has been strong. We saw him fight his way back through the field, of course, yesterday after the collision with Kaduri at the very start of the race. And today we see the potential across a race distance for the MG Lola EX264, maybe slightly aided by the safety car. That cushion for the Maserati was burned away. And now Mike Newton just has a few more corners to go before an overall win. Also a win, of course, in LMP2B, and more success, further decoration on the CV of a car and indeed a driver that won the 2006 24 Hours of Le Mans in the LMP2 class. Serial success as well in the Le Mans series in the same period for this car. Chassis HU05, a car of fabulous prominence and increasing vintage. Mike won't thank me for this, but much like himself. And still a great duo, the 25 car and its custodian. They come around the final corner now for the final time.
Yeah, Mike Newton then just doing a late bit of lappery as he makes his way towards the line to take the overall victory of the Endurance Racing Legends there, taking full advantage of that safety car period as well to make the move early on Evgeny Karev, who comes across the line to take second place and the class victory in GT1B. Richard Mines was looking to just lock down third place in class. He'll get second place now with the late retirement of Philip Kaduri. But that class in GT1B might go the way of Franz Wunderlich, because car 83, which is Martin O'Connell, has got a 45-second time penalty due to track limit infringement at turn 13. And there goes Richard Mines across the line to take second place in class. And we'll see Mark Jolly, although he'll battle away hard with Sebastian Gleiser towards the end of this race, Gleiser will beat him in the standings, as Jolly does have a penalty to serve. But he's appeared as 4th and 5th on the timing screens at the moment. Martin O'Connell across the line in 6th place. Franz Wunderlich will cross the line 7th, but he is due to move ahead of Martin O'Connell due to those penalties there. So Wunderlich should find himself on the podium of GT1B.
Still waiting to see the 29 car across the line. That is Christian Traber, who will take the win in GT2C. Incidentally, Nick Padmore did manage to get himself past Maris to take third in class in the 76 car. But our overall winner is indeed Mike Newton, solo driving in a car most familiar to him. And HU05 still fits like a glove all these years later. And it's one of those special things about kind of racing of this heritage in historic racing, when you've got 15 or 20 years between the modern racing and then its historic counterpart. You still have owners, original owners and original drivers with the cars still in their possession, and that allows unique spectacles such as seeing a Le Mans class winner winning races still in the very machine that he scored his biggest successes. That is a unique and rather exciting element of the endurance racing legends.
Absolutely. I was wondering the 83 and the 5 didn't swap positions. That was because Franz Wunderlich got a penalty himself, 45 seconds for track limit infringement at turn 7. So he will hold position there. That's the reason why they didn't change. So the time screen is correct there. Mark Jolly ahead of Glaser at this moment in time, who are class victors in any case. And there is Mark Jolly, winner of the LMP1A class, finishing 4th place overall. But our overall winner then and winner of the LMP2B class is Mike Newton. He got the victory today. And I guess it's a sense of vindication after what happened yesterday. He's got the overall win over the line here today, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely right. After that contact with Kaduri yesterday on just the 3rd corner of the first lap, he will feel fairly relieved to take this result on this occasion. Incidentally, in the LMP 1B element of this championship, or LMP2B, Mike Newton will be the runaway champion as well. So championship and overall victory in LMP2B for Mike Newton.
Yeah, great stuff. So it's Mike Newton who takes the victory there. It was a Kariva who came across the line in 2nd place and overall winner of GT1B. Richard Mines across the line 3rd overall. Mark Jolly came in 4th and winner of LMP1A. You had Glaser across the line in the winner of GT2A. Traba in the number 29 was your winner of GT2C. Then you had further down, you had GT2B was won by the number 92, finishing in 14th overall of Clegg, and winner of in Whiteside was the highest invitational, but it was a good start as it's turned out there from Ramzan Uruzbayev. Managed to get his way into the lead and ahead of Mike Newton, and eventually built up a near 20-second gap between himself and Newton. A great battle as well to be had with Richard Mines there, as he was looking to try and find a way past Reutemeyer. Mark Jolly passing through picture there, was looking to just keep everything under control, and a bit of lappery as well, almost going 3 wide in the background. Was great to keep an eye on. Glaser as well just kept his head down and tried to close the gap between himself and Mark Jolly. We had Pierre Avron Violet find the gravel, but was pulled to recovery and was allowed to rejoin the race, albeit a lap down or so. Maserati MC12 dominated the early part of this race. Mike Newton did his best to try and keep that gap as well as he could. The pit window came and went. It was only 10 minutes, so we got a very busy pit lane for that. But we had the incident up at turn 10 and brought out the safety car, which bunched up the field and wiped out the Maserati's lead. So much so that on the restart, Mike Newton instantly got down the inside in towards the first corner and never looked back. He got that position, got the overall lead, and just decided to run away with it. Glaser as well made the move there on the 83 of Martin O'Connell, got himself up a position there, and that allowed him to try and face off with Mark Jolly. A bit of a smokescreen down there. But then we had the issue for Philip Kaduri with only 3 laps to go, really. The car fouled him, unfortunately, and he had to retire from this race. And Mike Newton came across the line to take the victory here and the overall victory, to take that crown. And a bit of vindication from yesterday from Mike Newton.
And great to see here the lunchtime proceedings, the motorcycle demonstration. Lots of MotoGP and World Superbike machines taking to circuit during the lunch break here. I saw an ex-Max Biaggi Yamaha M1. I think that was the first ever Yamaha M1 in 2002, the first year of MotoGP. A few ex-MotoGP Ducatis in amongst it as well. A smorgasbord of historic racing activity this weekend here at the Estoril Classics as we take a little break.
Welcome back here into Estoril with the motorcycles taking to the circuit then for their demonstration, the Spirit of Speed. And it really will be a demonstration. But as you already mentioned, Adam, in here in the Estoril Classics, when we see a demonstration, there's normally a sort of edge to try and get the series racing as well. Well, I
Ah,
guess we can,
I don't think
you know,
I don't think that'll be the case here. That was more in regard to Pater and their organisation. In this case, this is purely a demo. Um, the 500cc motorcycles that preceded MotoGP, the MotoGP vehicles that followed, very difficult to source parts for that kind of machinery. I'm not sure that racing them will be feasible ever, if certainly not currently. I don't think, and sadly, a lot of them don't even survive. The ones that don't fall into collector hands or museums, sometimes they get crushed. There isn't quite the preservational mentality there with some of the MotoGP teams, but we've got some fabulous motorcycles out there on the circuit. I saw an ex Troy Bayliss Ducati 999, I think 2007 potentially world title winning machine, one of the Xerox Ducatis. I think that was the Bayliss 2007 World Superbike winner, but an incredible array of 500cc machines from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, just about every decade you can imagine. I think Kenny Roberts Jr. Suzuki there as well, a 500cc championship winner. And indeed, there is the Troy Bayliss 999 just turning through the first corner as well. I already mentioned the ex Biaggi Yamaha M1. Quite a few quite a few bikes from the Endurance World Championship out there as well. I think I spotted the ex Honda factory entry too. There is that Xerox Ducati I mentioned, but a real treat here for motorcycle racing fans. Quite the variety out there on circuit, having a demo run. And I think the safety car is now pulled in, so these riders getting a chance to do a few laps in anger. And whoever it is riding the Ducati 999 is certainly taking that to heart. He's been making some passes and is wanting to be at the front of the back.
Open up the taps there, get the engine going as they'll make their way now down towards turn 6. And some of them here just enjoying the views, but as you said, others keen to just see what the bike underneath them can actually do. Yeah, it's a glorious sight to see them lapping the Estoril circuit today under the glorious sunshine.
Absolutely. But of course, this is our lunch break. And while I'm sure because it's me and because I'm an autistic motorsport obsessive, I could probably rabbit about this for the duration of the demo, I think it probably wise that we allow you to hear these bikes in full rather than have me try and do an impromptu TED talk. We'll let you hear these wonderful sounds and Kieran, we'll be back with the racing action, of course, in not too long, actually, isn't it? We haven't got long until the
No.
CER 2 grid heads out onto the circuit for more racing.
Yes. Yeah, we've got the Classic Endurance Racing 2. We've got the greatest trophy for their second race of the weekend. We've also got some classic pre-1986 F1 cars to take to the grid again today. And then we finish off the days with the Heritage Touring Cup, the Classic Endurance Racing 1, and the Iberian Historic Endurance. So plenty of racing action to sink your teeth into. But for now, we will leave you with the fantastic Spirit of Speed motorcycle display.